was Alexander Vinokurov's chance. Today, every Frenchman in the peloton will be looking for that glory because it's Bastille Day at the Tour de France. Welcome to the Saab Tour pre-race show. Today, we exit the Alps and head to Provence. At the finish line in Digne-les-Bains, the capital of lavender, we welcome you to OLN's coverage of the 2005 Tour de France. Our mobile unit has made it to the finish line, and it's going to heat up today. Temperatures well into the 80s. It finally feels like summer here in the Tour, and this is what lavender looks like. Now, yesterday in the Tour de France, Lance Armstrong gave back some time. The question is, how significant is that going to be, considering the resume of Alexander Vinokurov? And today is Bastille Day in France. That is a very big deal. It's France's July 4th. More on that a little bit later. Let's bring in Bob Roll. How does Bastille Day shake up the Tour today?
Well, you see the French riders especially motivated to do well on their national holiday because of the TV ratings. Everybody doesn't work, no matter what day of the week it is. They're all glued to the TV, and it's become a tradition the last 100 years that everyone watches the Tour in France on Bastille Day.
We'll talk about the miles that will be coming up ahead, but let's recap what happened yesterday, and we'll find out how significant it was. It was day 2 in the Alps, leaving Courchevel, heading to Briançon. Little headline early, Tom Boonen abandoned the Tour. That gives the green jersey now to Thor Hushovd, who's been cycling like he had an inkling this would happen to Boonen. So he is out of the Tour. Meanwhile, an early breakaway on the first of 2 awful climbs. And that 8-man break wound up being 3. Scary moment for Oscar Pereiro. How about a difficult word more than scary? Frightening. Cheated death, though, and was able just minutes later return to the break. Now Discovery trying to track down that break. And in spite of the pressure being put on a unified Discovery team led by George Hincapie there, they could not shave away the break of Alexander Vinokurov. He had a 3-minute advantage at the summit of the final climb. After that, it was downhill, so to speak. Santiago Botero trailed him by a minute, then rocketed back at the bottom of the descent to be at his side. And that set up a sprint and the finish. And just how much damage did Lance have to deal with?
I don't think it was a tremendous amount of damage when you consider the time, just over 1 minute. But a great stage win for Vinokurov, who had a very tough time the first day in the mountains to the stage in Courchevel. A total reversal of fortune for the T-Mobile rider.
What's Lance trying to do here in the pack sprint?
I think that he wanted to get the time bonus if possible, but Christophe Moreau came around to get that, and not too disconcerting to have Moreau win that, not factoring into the GC probably when we get back to Paris.
How cruel can the Tour be? How about a day removed from the yellow jersey? Jens Voigt completes yesterday's stage 11, but misses the elimination time by 400 yards, and as a result of that, Jens Voigt is also eliminated by time from the Tour. Alexander Vinokurov, he said, listen, we didn't get much time today, but it's a stage win, and I will take it. We turn now to the Pacific Life look at stage 11. Vinokurov and Botero were right there, separated by a second. Then came the main group, which means that Lance loses 1 minute and 15 seconds, plus Vinokurov's time bonus. Vinokurov now trails Lance still by 4 minutes and 47 seconds. Here's Lance wearing the yellow jersey for a 73rd time in his career.
73 days in the yellow jersey. A lot of riders' careers defined by just 1 day in the jersey. Lance talking to Bernard Hinault. He's right behind him. And here we see the general classification brought to you by Michelin. Lance Armstrong leading. Mellow Johnny back in the house. Rasmussen is 38 seconds down. Moreau, 2:34 into third. Basso slips to fourth because of the time bonus for Moreau. Valverde in 5th place.
Joining us now is Lance's longtime coach, Chris Carmichael, and I know you talk to Lance all the time. How significant is he looking at Michael Rasmussen, who is only 38 seconds back?
Well, he is. I mean, he's definitely only 38 seconds back, and, you know, he didn't look like a guy who was having any problems on any of the climbs yesterday whatsoever. There's 2 summit finishes coming up in the Pyrenees, and Rasmussen looks very good.
We saw yesterday in the one feed zone, Lance gets his musette and then goes through it and rips through the stuff he doesn't want. Obviously, he knows clearly what he wants out of that bag in terms of food and keeping up his intake. What are we talking about in terms of calories for a guy like that in a stage like this?
A stage like today he'll go through a lot of calories. I mean, he'll probably go through about 6,000 calories today.
That's all?
While on the bike, you know, and you know, he'll have to take in about 45 to 60 grams of carbohydrates every hour. 1 energy bar, like a power bar and a power gel every hour, and then 2 to 3 water bottles an hour would be great. Sometimes it's hard to take in that much. Sometimes he'll take in one water and also a bottle of sports drink.
What do you think Lance will be doing in a stage like today?
I think what he wants to do is to be able to conserve as much energy as he can, contain his chief opponents. He can't chase everybody. And Vinokurov had a great ride yesterday, but he was pretty far down, and now he's chipping his way and getting back. You hate to get Vino back in the race, but he definitely did, and he rode a great up in the big mountains, and so we're going to see more of Vinokurov. But right now, I think there's more dangerous guys that are a little closer to Lance.
We'll take a break. For more on Chris Carmichael's training tips, go to trainright.com/OLN. When we come back, we'll look at today's stage. It's certainly not what was yesterday. Welcome back to the Saab Tour pre-race show. This is going to be a pretty stage to look at. Stage 12 from the Alps into Provence, right on the edge of it. We're at the finish line in Digne-les-Bains, and that's where today's stage 12 will finish up. 6 straight Tour wins for Lance Armstrong. Imagine that if he had a chest cold at some point along the way in the month of July, he would not be looking at 6 perhaps. It certainly can throw off your entire game. For more on that, let's go to Bob Roll, Paul Sherwen, and Phil Liggett. How's that chest and throat doing?
Well, I'm getting worried, Al, because the less I speak, the more the viewing figures are going up.
Now, it's not the Alps today, but we're going to see some challenges.
Very tough little stage. Not big mountains, not high mountains, but all climbing almost all the day. Category 3s, 4s, and one Category 2 climb out on the course. It's a very tough race route, and we have some much warmer temperatures also.
All right, Paul, take us to the capital of lavender.
I'll tell you one thing, Al, I think you're right. It's going to be a very pretty stage for us, but not necessarily for the riders. So let's have a look at the race map brought to us by Mitcham. We're going further south now. We're still on the eastern part of the country, but we're getting very much into the outskirts of Provence. Let's look at the race route that the riders will be facing. Moving away from where they finished yesterday in Briançon. A nice, easy start, slightly downhill, but look at this repetition of cols that the riders have to go over, and that is what is going to make today's stage very difficult. When they get down into Digne-les-Bains, they thought they'd finished, but there's a little route around the finish line on a circuit of about 20 kilometers. And as you can see, it's not a flat stage, a very difficult stage. The 187 kilometers is about 116 miles, and that's roughly the distance between Albany and Hartford, Connecticut. And the last time the race came here to Digne-les-Bains was a long time ago, back in 1969, and we all know who the winner was on that occasion. The winner was, of course, the great Eddie Merckx, ahead of Felice Gimondi.
So no Category 1s or beyond categories, but we saw the Category 2s can be challenging as well. Now it's time for the Saab Performance Predictions, otherwise known as the battle for the OLN yellow jersey. Well, everybody came up empty yesterday. Nobody could have foreseen the breakaway that developed. Nobody picked Vinokurov. No one picked Lance Armstrong. No one picked Pozzero. So everything's the same, 21, 16, 12, and still in the Grateful Dead, dead last jersey, Bob Roll. It is time now to present Le Maillot Jaune. Now, we don't have the stuffed lion yet, but we do have flowers, so you get the lavender. Very nice.
Anybody out there? Anybody there?
All right, it's time now to make our picks, and let's see who's first on the... Oh, it's Paul getting to pick first.
Well, you know, it's a good pick for me today, because today is going to be an aggressive stage. We'll see 1 or 2 riders going out on the attack. My pick, because I'm in the lead, is going to be Stuart O'Grady.
All right, I'm going back to a man who performed so well a couple of stages ago. He took yesterday off, but he's coming back in a big way. Alejandro Valverde.
I'm going to pick Jan Ullrich, the big German. Let me tell you, there's a lot of things wrong with his career.
He's done nothing.
The main thing wrong, he doesn't like the cold weather. He likes the heat. We're getting to the south. It's a lot hotter down here. Ullrich, baby, you see.
All right, well, the other guy who loves heat is Bradley McGee, so I'm going to go for the Australian. He's having a terrible tour. He was planning on being in the top 3, so he needs a stage win.
Phil, when you heard he was taking Jan Ullrich, what did you think?
Well, the same as you are, but I can't repeat it on television.
Well, he doesn't want to waste words.
No, I think the answer to the whole question here is I've had a few emails from the United States. People think that Bob is actually fighting to stay in last place. He wants to finish the Tour de France with a single point.
So
but actually, the producer said to me the other day, if we're not careful, Bob is going to have DNF next to his name quite shortly. Did not finish.
Did not compete.
I got a point.
I don't know. This is what we deal with on a day-to-day basis. It's just not right for 2,200 miles. We'll get back for stage 12 right after this on OLN.
Lance Armstrong's smooth ride to Paris has hit a bump in the road. Alexander Vinokurov, he's returned to the race, and he's not the only one. Michael Rasmussen looks stronger with each passing day. In fact, every contender seems to truly understand that each stage is a new opportunity to test Lance Armstrong. Who will take up the challenge today? Is it time to jump to the front and show off your colours? Stage 12 of the 2005 Tour de France is next on OLN. Beautiful day as we head now to the Haute-Provence region of France, where it's always hot and the racing is always fast. No high mountains, but this is a day Lance Armstrong has warned could be a day when he will be under attack. This is a most historic region of France. The people here haven't seen the race in this region since the late 1960s. Needless to say, they are out in the thousands. There we are in our little house nearest camera, on the start line, ready to talk to you. Hi, everybody. Welcome backstage 12 today. We've been in the saddle for 12 days. Voices coming back. And Lance Armstrong was worried about this stage, Paul, because he's talked about it being a possible dangerous stage.
Well, you know, Lance Armstrong is very careful, very meticulous in his presentation and his preparation for the Tour de France. And he actually went out, when he came to look at the Alpine stages, he came to look at this one. And just before the Tour de France, he actually said to me, a lot of people are going to get caught out on today's stage. No big mountains, but very difficult terrain.
No big mountains, but a lot of small mountains. A couple of second categories, thirds and fourths. And it's a sort of day when Michael Rasmussen succeeded well when we were up in the northern part of the stage. And there he is now, establishing himself quite a lead in the King of the Mountains competition. And perhaps today he'll add a few more points. He's looking pretty solid. 160 points he scored now. 89 for Christophe Moreau, having a great tour. Santiago Botero came up into third yesterday. Vinokurov is there after his win yesterday too, because he was top over the Col de Galibier. The points today, they come at these various kilometres, 61, 88, 115. Third, second, fourth. This is our AMD point score here. 4.32 over the first climb. On the second category climbs, 10.98.765. And there's plenty of points available throughout the day today. Let's have a look how the day has unfolded. I can tell you, it has not been a great start for US for the Discovery Channel team. I'll tell you more about that in a moment. At the start, it was all smiles for Alexander Vinokurov, wearing the red number as most aggressive rider of yesterday. At the first sprint, out on his own, making his move, Bradley McGee getting 6 points. A battle between McEwen and Hushoff behind, because that green jersey now, in the absence of Tom Bonan, not starting up for grabs.
Well, again, it was a very aggressive start, almost 50 kilometres covered in the first hour of racing. But the big news for Discovery Channel was a very dramatic crash on the road of Manuel Beltran. 41st overall, but I think the most important thing is a man who is an integral part of Armstrong's defence in the mountains. And although the doctor was able to get alongside him and give him some on-board, on-the-road treatment, he had to abandon the race.
First rider from Lance's team to abandon since Christian van der Velde back in 2001. Bogart getting over this mountain with 4 points. This was the Col de Mounzel after 61 kilometres covered. Well, as we look at the action, there is the peloton still under the control. No doubt the boys in Discovery feeling a little bit disconsolate right now, having lost a man. They don't like losing any of their riders. They are a complete team, and it is a shame that they have lost one now, because it was a silly crash, and in fact he's reported to have hurt his knee, and so he couldn't get any further. So Tricky Beltran, as we call him, is out of the Tour de France. And we now have a breakaway up the road of 13 riders. They got it clear at 63 kilometres, 11 of them. Stuart O'Grady and Tor Hushoff caught up. They're now jointly in a battle here with McEwen for the green jersey. So I suspect that O'Grady and Hushoff marked each other. They're in the breakaway now, 13 riders in the front. The gap is around 3 minutes. No one threatening the lead of Lance Armstrong is in that break.
Bitter blow, I would say, though, Phil, because looking here at Discovery Channel, they do have this question of pride about taking all 9 riders on the road up to Paris, and this, I think, will be a little bit of a psychological blow to Armstrong and his men in blue.
This is the breakaway. It's got away 63 kilometres in. There's been a scurry of attacks, but this one seems to be going. 11 riders, 3 of them from France, of course, on Bastille Day. And it took Stuart O'Grady and Tor Hushoff about 12 kilometres to catch up, but they did.
Stuart O'Grady just over there on the left-hand side. He knew that this was going to be the big move here this afternoon, and that is what he was looking for. But of course, Tor Hushoff was not going to let the Australian go anywhere, because these 2 riders, because of the abandon this morning of Tom Bonin, are locked together in the battle for the green jersey points classification. They better watch out at the end, though, if it does come down to a sprint, because that man there is a very rapid sprinter. That is a man by the name of Giovanni Lombardi, who for many, many years was the lead-out man for one Mario Cipollini, now also retired.
Well, there is the breakaway now, settling in for what could be a long, hot day in the saddle. They covered 50 kilometres in the first hour. Yes, the beginning was downhill, but they kept the pace on until this breakaway established itself. So, they're all set for a long day. So are we. As you can see now, Armstrong won't worry too much about this breakaway. It couldn't be more perfect for him, actually. The best placed rider in it is Sandy Cassar, more than 17 minutes behind. So he won't worry yet. The big sad news for him is Beltran out of the Tour de France today after a crash. The Tour de France today is taking no notice of the hot weather, and the ride down to Digne-les-Bains is going well. Over 50.5 kilometres in hour 1. The sad news for Lance Armstrong is his teammate Beltran crashed and is out with an injured knee. We're on the climb now of the Col Saint-Jean. Second category climb, scores well for the King of the Mountains, but Michael Rasmussen, the leader in that competition, not in this front group, currently leading Lance Armstrong's bunch by 3 minutes and 13 seconds. There's nobody up here interested in the competitions along the way. And really, there's nobody interested in the final yellow jersey either. This is a perfect combination to stay out front all day. And then we're going to have to choose a winner from the pack. Some of these riders can climb. Stuart O'Grady there, rushing to the front, is actually reading the map to see exactly where he is. Well, I can tell him he's got 99 kilometres to go. This is the AMD information on the Col Saint-Jean. 12.5 kilometres in length. They're coming up to the summit now. It takes them up to 1,300 metres, and it's an average gradient of just 4%, leaving them at 99 kilometres to go. Now, Juan Manuel Garate, nearest camera there in that yellow-red jersey, champion of Spain, is in the breakaway. First breakaway has been in this tour too, by the way, but that will go for half the breakaway, as it still continues to drive on here. 3:20 the gap. There is the beauty of this area of France. It really is a magnificent country, isn't it? Well, don't forget, once our coverage here, the Tour de France has gone. Up next will be E-Force. A Tangled Turtle's life is on the line, and a reckless jet skier tries to outrun the hammer. It's never just another day at the beach for E-Force. Up next, immediately following our live coverage here of the Tour de France today. So it looks as though we got a little bit of problem there. I think it was Stefan Schreck who was dropping off the pace, but he's nearly at the top. Well, 3:24, the gap, you can see the crowd. It's an area where the Tour doesn't often come. It used to come here a lot up until the 60s, then it seemed to go away. We're so far south. This is a part of the Alps we don't always see, because you're rather restricted in the roads you can use without changing countries. But Juan Manuel Garate has decided to prove to the world that he is a climber after all, and he's nipped ahead here to take the climb of the Col Saint-Jean. Goodness knows how many people are on the road today. It's a beautiful day for enjoying the Tour. It's Bastille Day, everybody in holiday mood, and the weather has been turned on. Sandy Cassar in second place. Looks as though Stuart O'Grady may have crossed that line third.
Well, O'Grady's just being attentive. I think he will have crossed off that second category climb on his agenda here this afternoon. He'll be looking forward to getting over the second category climb up towards the end, because there's a nasty climb, the Col de Corbin, 156 kilometres covered. The 2 or 3 weakest climbers in this group at the front would have to be Giovanni Lombardi, who's second from the back, Tor Hussoft and Stuart O'Grady. But on a day like today, you don't necessarily have to have climbing legs. It's a question today, I think, of the man who has recovered the best from the 2 very difficult week days we had in the Alps.
We're completing 12 days now, Paul, and in all honesty, it's been a tough tour. There's a lot of tired riders in this race. Do you go back over a week when Lance made that very comment? He was surprised how many riders were falling behind the race before, in his opinion, the race was getting that hard.
Well, he was surprised. It was really on a 4th category climb on the road down into Mulhouse. In fact, there was a nasty crash, and he was surprised at the number of riders who were dramatically left behind. There was about 60 riders left behind when the race didn't really accelerate. I think it's a good day for Team Discovery Channel. They know how difficult this race can be towards the end, and another thing that really amplifies the difficulty of today's stage is for the first time we're actually starting to get some hot weather.
Well, it really is beautiful today, but people were asking that they would prefer if they organised the Tour de France in the summer, because the weather over these first 12 days have been very up and down, but it's brilliant now. Of course, some riders love the heat, some riders love the cold, and they react differently. Now it's a different problem for some riders. We'll see. The biggest problem Lance has had today on what should have been a fairly tranquil day, I think, is the loss of Manuel Beltran, because here's a rider he relies on heavy, is a great pacemaker, so solid, never seems to be off form, always willing to work. A silly crash, an injured knee, highlights the risks in the peloton, I think.
Well, as you say, a silly crash, but that's one of the things that can happen on every day on a stage of the Tour de France, because unfortunately for him, he was the only rider to go down, and the riders were actually going reasonably slowly at the time, and those to me are always the worst crashes, because instead of sliding, you actually go down very hard. We've been talking about the weather changes, and the temperature has started to climb up a bit. We've come up to about 30 degrees Celsius, and one man who really enjoys the hot weather is the big German, Jan Ullrich.
Well, we'll see what Jan turns up today. He's Bob Roll's choice to win the stage. Maybe we'll be made to eat humble pie. We'll see. There's the peloton in the breakaway. Well, the breakaway and mountain was won by Patrice Algon. I must have missed that. Axel Merck second, and Jose Luis Arrieta was the rider over in 3rd place. And Juan Manuel Garate has now led the escape over the top of the climb. We'll see what happens. This is the situation back here now. This is another injured knee here. And this is Patrick Sinkovich. The team, at least the manager of the team, Patrick Lefevre, isn't talking to this rider. He's made it all too obvious he's leaving the squad. Mr. Lefevre thinks he's not acted very professionally. So he's saying rather harsh things about this young rider, and apparently they are not speaking. There is Armstrong, but right down the bottom there, sitting by his team, one short now. Anyway, let's go to the start with Craig Hummer. He was with Lance today.
Yesterday, you and the team hit the high point of the tour in terms of altitude, at least. How close are you guys to hitting your top form?
Well, I don't know. I mean, now it's just a question of surviving and recovering these tough days. We've got, as we know, 5 days here that are really hard. A bit of a medium day today, a flatter day tomorrow, but then 2 really hard days, 2 uphill finishes, which are always critical. And you know, the boys are good. They've got their confidence back and their morale back. So we'll see what happens.
What does today's stage throw at you that you definitely need to be mindful for, and who do you need to be mindful for?
I mean, today, as we all know, is a big day here in France, Bastille Day, and so the French riders, they ride 5 times as strong as they normally do, and if a Frenchman wins on this day, he's like the national hero for a while. So I suspect you'll see some French dudes.
You've known for a long time who your main GC contenders were going to be, but now you throw Michael Rasmussen into the mix. What does he add to what you need to look out for?
Well, we can't let him have another breakaway like he did the other day. I mean, I think when he did that, nobody in the group expected the time gap to stay as much as it did, and then the things like that can't happen again. So we have to watch him now as if he's a contender.
Thanks.
Yes, indeed. Michael Rasmussen has been the big surprise, but despite being 31 years of age, he's only in his 2nd Tour de France, and he really is a dangerous rider when he sits only 38 seconds behind Lance Armstrong overall. At the moment, the peloton here is sitting 3 minutes and 53 with Lance in it as they've crossed over the top of the Col Saint-Jean, and still plenty of miles left on the race today. And at the moment, at least, that breakaway is going to start feeling pretty confident, I think. Stay with us. We're racing towards Digne-les-Bains. See you in just a moment. Go, Lance. Welcome back underneath our commentary box. This is the cause of the noise. Celebrations on Bastille Day here in Digne-les-Bains. A beautiful summer's day in a most beautiful area of France, and they all can't wait to see the arrival of the Tour. And when it gets here, we go off on a big lap before they come back for the big finish. Out on the course now, it is still the boys in blue and white leading Lance Armstrong, just over 4 minutes behind the breakaway. The average speed now has come down to just on 44 kilometres an hour. They did 50.5 in the first hour, which was downhill start, and over the hills they managed 37.5 for an average speed there of 43.9. The peloton is now back to 4:14. He doesn't want that. That's one Manuel Garati. Don't worry, that'll be snatched and souvenir on eBay by the end of the day, I would think, as the peloton now dropping back a bit. This could be the gem breakaway of the Tour for guys just wanting to win a stage, simply because there's nobody affects anybody's future in the overall classification that matters. All right, well, don't forget, this could be the ride of a lifetime for them. Catch OLN's expanded coverage of today's stage tonight. The day's recap, rider interviews, as always, expert analysis will prepare you for tomorrow's ride. It's OLN's 2005 Tour de France expanded primetime coverage tonight at 8 Eastern, 9 Pacific. We know there are many, many tens of thousands enjoying our show this year, so keep on enjoying it with us. Well, this is, just thinking, Paul, this is a gem breakaway. I don't think it'll come back today. I think these boys are out there for the next hour and a half or so.
Well, this is an ideal situation, I think, for everybody. We've had 2 very hard days in the Alps, and we've seen many riders, especially many riders in this group, lose as much as an hour and 20 minutes in 2 days of racing. Now they're so far behind in the overall classification, they're not a threat to anybody's overall hopes. So I think they'll be given a free ticket for the afternoon.
So these are the wheels of the breakaway. It wasn't an easy move. There was a lot of attacks in that first hour before they finally got away. Bradley McGee was out there, and he's got caught and put back in his place after winning the first mountain climb. Chased, though, by, strange enough, first sprint, rather. Robbie McEwen was second there, followed by Thor Hushoff. So McEwen got a valuable 4 points. Hushoff didn't let him go far, though. The leader in that competition now that Tom Bonen sadly has gone today. He's not the only one, of course. We've lost Manuel Beltran. Also abandoning is Nicolas Frisch, also out today. So the field reducing by 2. We're down to 164 riders now in the Tour de France.
It's starting to get very tough, and it's all really because of those 2 difficult days we had in the Alps. And today, although it seems as if the main field is having a half a day off, it's still a difficult race route they have to follow this afternoon. There's a lot of climbs, 2 second category climbs, and I think it's a good tactical situation for Armstrong. If anybody wants to win the stage now, they've got to come forward and organise the chase. But I don't think Robbie McEwen will want to bring his team forward and chase, because they've got Axel Merckx in that leading group.
And he's absolute perfect candidate today. We're only in the lower, nearly 89, 90 kilometres from Digne-les-Bains. Actually, they'll be in the town in 40-odd kilometres of riding, so they're not that far away now before we might see them. But somebody like Axel Merckx could slip away on one of those climbs after they've been through the town once, because the breakaway now at 4.5 minutes. This is looking like a very solid move indeed. A lot of experienced riders, and no reason for Lance Armstrong to say we've got to chase. So as we look at people enjoying Bastille Day here in the far southeast corner of France, Lance Armstrong has to contemplate life now without Manuel Beltran. Crashed and out today. We'll take a break. Here we are as we look now at the peloton, just continuing to take on food here now at the feeding station on today's 187-kilometre ride down to Digne-les-Bains. They'll be there in about 40 kilometres, and then they've got a big lap. Breakaway is still clear, 13 riders away. The best placed man nearest to Lance Armstrong, more than 17 minutes back. So Armstrong can eat his lunch here without any real concern about that front move. And that's about the first day he's been able to do that this tour, I think. 91 kilometres to go. And as I say, after about 45 kilometres, we are going to pass through Digne-les-Bains and out into the country. Well, as we see the boys taking on food, let's go to our IBM backstage pass. Kirsten Gunn explaining why drinking is good for you.
Replenishing fluids is the most important thing a rider can do during a stage. It is a constant struggle to stay hydrated and to make sure their body is getting enough fuel in quick form. So how much fluid are riders actually drinking during their grueling day on a bike? On a hot day or a mountain stage, one T-Mobile rider like Vinokurov, Kloden, or Ulrich will drink up to 20 bike bottles of fluid, which hold 20 ounces each. That's just over 3 gallons, and most of it is sports drink. According to one team doctor, the ratio for most riders is about 12 bottles sports drink to 8 bottles of water.
When you only drink water, you get some overload with water and digestion problems. And so you use sports drinks to get a better digestion and some energy also.
And when it comes to what they're drinking, it's either a team decision or personal preference. At Gerolsteiner, the team uses a sports drink called Enervit from Italy, but we got the inside scoop on American Levi Leipheimer. He uses what his body is used to and knows. First endurance in Tropical Punch. Now, personally, Tropical Punch would make me puke, but there is a science to taste. If a rider likes the taste, he'll drink more of it, and that is what counts when you're on the bike.
It certainly does, and the answer is drink plenty and stay hydrated. Thank you, Kirsten Gumner, our IBM Backstage Pass. Looking here now at the men who've made the move. The Baker's dozen, 13 of them out front, including a good sprinter, Giovanni Lombardi, former points champion in the Olympic Games. 2 years ago now, that one was. Now, Paul, if you were to pick a winner today, you'd probably be biased, but there are probably 6 guys who are potential winners in this breakaway.
Well, they're all good winners. There's a lot of good winners in the race. I mean, there are riders in this breakaway who have won stages of the Tour de France before. It's difficult because you've got 2 very good sprinters. In fact, 3 very good sprinters, because Giovanni Lombardi, number 24 there, is a pretty fast finisher. There are 11 guys in this group who actually know that Stuart O'Grady and Thor Hushovd are very fast men. And I think that's why we'll probably see them trying to split the group on the running down towards the end.
Well, Lombardi, in his couple of years ago, was the lead-out man for Alessandro Petacchi, who's seen as the world's best sprinter these days, but he's not in the race, and Lombardi changed camps.
And before that, he was the lead-out man for a certain Mario Cipollini.
He was. He's been around, and he's a very, very nice guy, too. There is the polka dot jersey as leader of the King of the Mountains, Michael Rasmussen. First ever Dane to wear that jersey, I think. And I'll tell you, the viewing figures on Danish television are literally going through the roof, and the Danish are arriving in droves here in France because of the ride of this young man. They are beginning to talk about him as a likely man to topple Armstrong.
Are you saying the viewing figures are climbing every day?
It's a good, excuse the pun, everybody. Sitting there at the back of the race now.
Well, we've spotted 12. A lot of Norwegian viewers.
There's a lot of Norwegian viewers, actually. There's a lot of Scandinavians here this year. 4:53 is the place of Rasmussen in that group, alongside Lance Armstrong as well. De Vitamin Lotto here, driving at the front.
Oh, Robbie's not
sure
happy
about this. Now, this is a questionable tactic right now when you've got Axel Merckx in the breakaway.
I think it's pretty stupid. That's blunt, isn't it? Straight to the point. I think, you see, Robbie McEwen just a couple of days ago said, I don't care about the green jersey, I've just come here to ride and win stages. That, now putting the team on the front like that, I think it blows his hypothesis out of the water. He wants to win the green jersey.
Well, in fairness, Robbie always says, I'll wait and see how it goes. Well, it's gone, of course, his way now, because he's right up in the competition. He's in 4th place. He scored in the first sprint today. He got 2nd place on 4 points. If he hadn't have been disqualified from 3rd way back in the first week of the Tour, he would actually be the leader of that competition now. It looks like he's feeling good today. Now, that would explain the trip back to the team car earlier, where he was seen chatting with the team management. He must have said, look, Axel Merckx is in the break, but there's 13 of them. I think we should race to bring it back because I can win the sprint. That, I'm sure, is what has been decided.
Absolutely, that's what's been decided. And Robbie's obviously put the line down to the team and to say this afternoon, well, forget about having Axel Merckx in that leading group, because I can win the sprint when it comes down to the end. And if we don't win the sprint, then the 2 riders, Stuart O'Grady and Hushovd, won't get any points anyway.
Well, we're in the next town along the route now at 87.5 kilometres to go. Is Seine-les-Alpes. The Tour de France, it might be changing its face today. After all, we're going to find out. Take a break. Welcome back to the Tour de France. We're questioning who is friends and love and war right now, because this is the breakaway. And they are being chased by Axel Merckx, who is in the breakaway. His teammates are hunting them down. 4:30 is the latest gap. And this breakaway moving on to the next climb of the day here, which is the Col du Labouré. And they look, in fact, as if they're slowing down, although this is quite a long drag, this little col here. There's plenty of them in the area. And the breakaway still holding their own. But it is a good breakaway in theory because there's nobody here upsetting anybody behind. Well, we are hearing now as I speak, and I know the South African viewers look very, very upset about this, but Robbie Hunter has just abandoned the tour. We really expected Robbie Hunter to be in with a chance of winning one of the stages today, but he's gone now. The Phonak team rider, well, they had a rough start to the day because their vehicle broke down, couldn't get a mechanic as they went to the start because it was Bastille Day, and they had to get the bikes off and ride to the start this morning. But it was only 8 kilometres. Let's have a look at the face now. This is the tactics that we would normally question. De Vietem and Lotto here, the teammates of McEwen, have been told to ride and chase that breakaway down, which contains a possible winner on their team, Axel Merckx. Oh, it's an interesting day after all today. Well, don't forget our exclusive coverage of the Tour de France continues with stage 13 tomorrow. If Robbie doesn't win today, he'll certainly be looking for it tomorrow. It's the transition stage towards the Pyrenees. We'll be live with you at 8:30 a.m. Eastern, 5:30 a.m. Pacific, and our expanded coverage, as usual, 8 p.m. Eastern, that's 9 p.m. Pacific. The Tour de France goes on stage 13 tomorrow, and that will be lucky for someone. And it should be a day for the sprinters, unlike today, which might be a day for the sprinters any time now. So as the race goes on, and it's all De Vietem and Lotto on the front. They're beginning to eat a little bit into the lead here, Paul, 4:16, and closing in. I'm very, very sorry to have seen the abandon of Robbie Hunter. Bit surprised too, but he's never been part of the race for some reason this year.
Pretty sad because Robbie started the season off very well for Team Phonak, getting them a victory very early on in the year in the Tour of Qatar, and I'm a bit surprised to see that, but obviously he didn't recover the 2 big mountain stages that we've been through over the last 48 hours. Now, this is a move, as you can see, by Sandy Cassar.
Well, we're on the little climb here of the Col de Labouré, and this is a move we would have expected. He has sensed that breakaway is beginning to become a little bit disruptive because they will know now, I think, that the De Vietem and Lotto squad are chasing. So he's trying to reorganise the break by getting someone to come out and play with him.
Well, he knows why they're chasing as well. They're chasing because of the presence in that leading group of 13 riders of 2 very good sprinters. Of course, Stewie O'Grady and Thor Hushovd. And although Robbie McEwen missed the move, I think he realises now that even if he doesn't win the stage himself today, he has to pull those 2 riders back to make sure they don't get any points, because if those 2 riders finish in the first 2 or 3 places, they're going to have a massive advantage over Robbie McEwen, who's actually in the last couple of days pulled himself back into the race.
Well, they've certainly given him a little lead at the moment. There's nobody reacting from that peloton. They're all looking at one another saying, well, who's going to make the move? Sandy Cassar is the one nearest Lance Armstrong in the general classification, 31st at 17 minutes 29 seconds behind. That's a long way, so he's not going to get 17 minutes back today. So that's the reason, of course, that Lance Armstrong has not asked his team to work hard today, saving them now for the Pyrenees if he can. Well, this is the former champion too of France, Sandy Cassar. A breakaway here by one man. We saw a fabulous breakaway yesterday, and that should be a clue for our Honda highlight of the day. Alexander Vinokurov, he was away on the attack, and boy did he show them a clean pair of wheels. The giant Col de Galibier, the big one of the Tour. A great win for him up there, and at the bottom a memorable win down below as well, beating Santiago Botero. And with Alexander Vinokurov saluting the crowd yesterday in Briançon, that's our Honda highlight of the day. So Sandy Cassar is the rider now, trying to reorganise the breakaway here and get things moving. He's done this before. He's an opportunist rider. He's the sort of man who might pull something special off, but I think he is sensing that things are changing at the back here, and all of a sudden De Vietem and Lotto want this breakaway to come back. He's working very, very hard at the moment. And is a long way to go, but he might get first down to Dean-les-Bains and then face a 45-kilometre loop. Remember, there's plenty of hills to come. These are the men who've conquered the mountains in years gone by. Michael Rasmussen is the rider in polka dot right now, and we'll explain more about that when we come back. See you in a moment. Welcome back. Just to remind you, it is Bastille Day here in France, and everybody enjoying a national holiday. It's work as usual for the riders in the Tour de France, of course, and they're now chasing down this breakaway of 13 riders. They are closing in, but not very fast. Lance Armstrong is safe. 4 1/4 minutes is the breakaway. That's where Lance is situated. There's Michael Rasmussen, the polka dot jersey. He's a revelation for sure this year. Second overall at the moment, just 38 seconds. Nobody else can speak within minutes of Lance Armstrong at the moment. He can. The field here freewheeling. Angelo Furlan has just abandoned the Tour. That's a sprinter gone. We've lost to Robbie Hunter, the sprinter today from South Africa. Beltran, the Discovery Channel rider, has crashed and hurt his knee. He's out. And Nicolas Fisch has also abandoned. So it's a tough day for those that are staying in. There's Thomas Voigtler. At this stage last year, he was the hero of this Tour de France, as he continues on the way in the pack today. It's a big pack, but it's getting smaller by the guys who are stepping up off the back as they continue here to course through this valley. They're heading towards now the Col du Labouré. That'll take them to 72 kilometres. The riders up ahead are not too far from the summit of that climb. All right, well, don't forget, I keep reminding you of this. If you want to test your cycling fitness at thousands of cycling events around the United States, visit active.com and click on the cycling pages to find tours, centuries and races in your neighbourhood. Best part is you can register online instantly at active.com. You can also sign up for the daily tour, and that's a free Tour de France newsletter which includes updates, insightful commentary, I hope, and a chance to win great cycling prizes. It's an exclusive partnership between active.com and, of course, OLN. Well, field go on. Paul, this is an active move. They're not actually closing, they're just holding now. The boys from De Vitam and Lotto are not actually closing the gap, but they're doing a lot of work.
They're doing an awful lot of work, and it's a very difficult route to work on, actually, for these riders, because, as I said, you know, we are looking at an undulating route. It's a route that is up and down all of the time, and there are only 4 riders from De Vitam or Lotto doing the work on the front.
Yes, indeed, and well, the leaders are sorting out, but I was a bit sorry to see Angelo Furlan go. He got 2 4th place in that first week. He's gone now. We're on the Col de Labouré now. Not a very long one, as they continue up towards the summit, and nobody interested in the King of the Mountains point. It's another stepping stone towards the finishing line as far as they are concerned. As with every climb along the route and every sprint, there are prizes which will go into the coffers of the winning team. But just watching here the riders go through, nobody seemingly missing a turn just now. David Moncoutier, it looks as though Stuart O'Grady is anxious as he moves forward there with Juan Manuel Garate on his back wheel. They're planning something by the look of it. As we see now the field moving around a bit. Thor Hushovd is not going to let Stuart O'Grady go far from his sight. There's Axel Merckx, that is Thor Hushovd. These are AMD climb facts of this climb, the Col du Labouré. Just over 2 kilometres. It doesn't carry more than a 4th category rating, which means only first 3 get points. And it leaves them 71 to go. But 71 to go is only about 35 kilometres before we come down into Dean-les-Bains. And then we go out on a rather hilly final big loop. There's Garate, champion of Spain for the first time. The other week he won that race, gets to wear all the colours of his national championship. They've actually changed the design of the Spanish champions kit. It looks rather nice. At least we can pick him out, except we keep thinking he's Lance Armstrong in that yellow jersey, but he isn't. Armstrong is back in the peloton. The gap is still coming down, but very slowly. 4 minutes 9 seconds now. But just on a third of a kilometre from the summit. It looks as though this is a picture painting, doesn't it? Somebody painted that mounting in the backdrop as the peloton race towards it, but they won't be going over it. They'll turn in from it as they race towards Dean-les-Bains. 4 minutes 10. And now we have a bit of descending after this next climb, and if the workers of De Vita and Lotto are really serious about bringing this breakaway back, over the next 30 kilometres or so down to Digne-les-Bains, they really are going to have to turn on the speed. This is Johan van Summeren setting the pace now at the front. So while we look at the riders in the peloton, the little yellow jersey down there, let me explain to you the 4 leaders of the Premier competitions. Here it is, the classifications brought to you by ThinkPad. The yellow jersey still on the shoulders of Lance Armstrong. He's the leader on time, the leader on points. Today is a new leader, Thor Hushovd, after Tom Bonen abandoned this morning, didn't start. The white jersey changed the other day in the mountains. Alejandro Valverde, who beat Lance to the top of Courchevel, is the best rookie of the tour. He gets to wear a white jersey. Michael Rasmussen, who has made this jersey his own almost already, he gets the polka dot jersey, and he is the leader of the King of the Mountains. Here's now Paul Sherwen to tell us more about the King of the Mountains of the Tour de France.
Perhaps the most unique jersey worn at the Tour de France is the red and white polka dot jersey for the King of the Mountains. In this competition, points are awarded to the first riders over each mountain and hill climb. The bigger the climb, the more points available. The climbs are divided into categories, from first being the most difficult to fourth, which is the least difficult. Most points are available, however, in a 5th category called the Hors category, which means outside category. This is a climb deemed to be too difficult to even rate. Although the best climber was first recognised back in 1933, the distinctive jersey wasn't introduced until 1975, with the colours being decided by the then sponsor, Poulain Chocolat, who wanted the jersey to match their candy bar wrappers. Last year, Richard Virenque broke the record by winning his 7th overall polka dot jersey in a span of just 10 years. With the climbing specialist now in retirement, a new crop of climbers will fight it out for the right to wear the jersey. The favourite Michael Rasmussen of Team Rabobank has the lead right now, and Frenchman Christophe Moreau of the Crédit Agricole team has chased points at every turn. And let's not forget about Lance Armstrong, who, if you took away Richard Virenque, would have won both the yellow and the polka dot jerseys last year.
So it's been a great battle over the years, the polka dot jersey, but I think that we'll see a justifiable, good, solid leader through the Pyrenees in Michael Rasmussen. He's going to be a big challenger too for Lance Armstrong, who's very concerned about him right now. 38 seconds off the yellow and safely ensconced in the polka dot. This is a nice shot of the descents which have started now after the Col de Labouré, as we begin to course our way down now to the valley, which is where we're sitting, and then the riders will climb away again. The gap is not coming down anymore. It's holding at 4:17. That's the peloton containing all of the leaders of the Tour right now. There they are down there. As we see now through the lovely pine trees of this region, they do in fact get a lot of rain here as well, which means everything is lush and green. Lance Armstrong is the man in yellow. Do we need to ask anybody? Yes, I guess we know the answer. Welcome back to the Sunshine Bastille Day on the Tour de France. The riders just going over the top here of the small 4th category climb of the Col de Labouré. We're a little over 4 minutes ago. The leaders went over. That was Juan Manuel Garate, Axel Merckx Arrieta, head of the leading group of 13 men. 4:09 is now the official time gap. 70 kilometres left to race, which puts us about 20 kilometres or 12 miles from Digne-les-Bains. If you're just joining our coverage, especially on the western coast there, well, bad news for Lance today. Manuel Beltran, one of his favourite teammates, crashed. He's out with an injured knee. Did try to continue, as you would expect, but the doctors pulled him out because he was just in pain. So Manuel is out. Also gone Frisk, Hunter from Africa, and Angelo Furlan. They've also dropped out. In the green jersey, Tom Bonen, he was unable to start. He's suffering from all of the injuries. He's been down a couple of times already in the Tour this year. So you never know, do you? And Lance Armstrong is always aware of that fact. That's why he asks his team to ride near him, protect him. He can handle himself on the mountains, but these are dangerous moments as we cross the undulations here of the high roads of Provence, one of my favourite areas of France. It is stunningly beautiful. So with 65 kilometres to race, let's remind ourselves of our Bank of America American standings. Armstrong is still there after 41 hours in the saddle, almost 42. Levi Leipheimer is in 7th place and riding high. Floyd Landis is 11th and waiting for the Pyrenees, I think. Bobby Julie continues a great tour for him. Hincapie, Armstrong's right-hand man, is 23rd. Chris Horner and creditable to say the least, 28th. Freddie Rodriguez, the lead-out man for the Australian McEwen, just doing his job for McEwen. He's in 120th position. That's the Bank of America standings for today as we continue onwards towards Digne-les-Bains. We should be there in about 30 minutes or so. 4 minutes 12 is still the gap, Paul, with about, what, half an hour racing from passing through Digne-les-Bains, as we've got just on 40 miles to go as well. Same distance, about 70 kilometres or
It's going to be
so.
tough for these guys because once they've got this 20-kilometre downhill section to come into Digne-les-Bains for the first time, the leading group shouldn't lose very much time here because everybody will ride down at approximately the same speed. They'll all be going downhill at around about 60 kilometres an hour. And then they start the climb with the second category climb on that circuit. And I don't really see Team Lotto being the team to close the gap on the hilly section of the course.
Don't think they've got the firepower, in all honesty, because one of the men that would help them is in the breakaway. And that's Axel Merckx. And, of course, they've got to make a decision again shortly. If they're not going to close it down, they may be able to call the dogs off and leave Merckx to take his chance.
I can only think that the only reason that they're riding like this, Phil, is just to keep it at that 4-minute margin. Because maybe Robin McEwen is not actually thinking about winning the stage, but he's thinking about spoiling the chances of Hushoff and O'Grady in that group. If his team can keep it at around about the 4-minute mark, other riders in the group, maybe Il Baleares will think about Alejandro Valverde, and other teams will take the pace-making up on the last 40 kilometres, wipe away the chances of the two sprinters. So even if Robbie doesn't win today, he's spoilt the chances of the two sprinters who would leap and bounce, take a big advantage on him.
It is a good thought. He's making the two guys who are challenging Robbie for his green jersey, which he won last year. The three of them are locked in solid battle. The two are in the breakaway. There's one, Stuart O'Grady, and never far away is the other one in green and white there, Thor Hushoff. He's making them ride here to use a lot of energy because they know the peloton is not allowing this group to ride away today. And almost certainly, should this group come together, O'Grady and Hushoff will score high in the green jersey competition. Now, they may not win, but all riders in this breakaway will score in the green jersey competition.
This will still get points, and that's the most important thing for these riders. And I tell you what, O'Grady is going to the front all of the time here. He's not holding anything back like a sprinter.
Now.
That's
Moncoutier.
not it. Moncoutier. But O'Grady, when he comes to the front, he does big, long turns, and he's happy about the race situation because he's got a teammate. Because if he falters towards the end, well, the man there, number 126, this guy, Moncoutier, has sat at the back over the first 9 days of the Tour de France. I've always noticed him sitting at the rear end of the main field. But after all, he's a man who won a stage in the Tour de France last year. Remember that long breakaway on the road into Figeac, basically over his home training ground. And he's the kind of guy that O'Grady, if something goes wrong towards the end, he can count on Moncoutier going out to win the stage for Cofidis.
Well, this is Moncoutier's 6th Tour de France. And he was a high finisher. He's not been a great... He's had a 13th place over the years, but he's never quite been a top 10. There's the high-speed peloton continuing to race towards the finish. Juan Manuel Garate there, getting the bottle off the car as the race moves on. Won't be long now before they come through Digne-les-Bains on the way for that big lap down here. We'll see you in a moment. Welcome back, the beauty of the high province here, and this is our Trek aerial view brought to you by Trek Lucky 7 Sweepstakes. This is the best seat in the house. There's the peloton of the Tour de France today, racing about 4 minutes behind a breakaway of 13. Armstrong always safely near the front with his teammates all around him. Sadly losing one today though. Manuel Beltran out with a crash and injured knee. This is the breakaway. They managed to get away at around 76 kilometres, joined later by two riders, which was Thor Hushoff from Norway, who becomes the first Norwegian rider to wear the green jersey, except he hasn't put it on today, and that is in respect, I think, of Tom Bonen, who was unable to start this morning because of injuries in crashes, and they're fighting it out to see who wears it tonight. So on the podium tonight, it should be Thor Hushoff who'll pull it on. He's got enough points in hand to stay the leader at least for today over Stuart O'Grady and Robbie McEwen. O'Grady in the breakaway as well, of course. There's Hushoff climbing past camera. This is David Moncoutier, teammate of Stuart O'Grady. Well, as we look at the breakaway here, it's the man back in the field who has been destroying the race yet again, looking set at the moment for a 7th Tour de France victory. He has, of course, been an inspiration to us all. We've enjoyed working and commentating on Lance Armstrong. OLN is saying, thank you, Lance Armstrong. You can too. Just come on board at olntv.com and register your message. Give Lance a big thank you. As the field course by, not really catching up at all right now. 4 minutes and 4 seconds. It has been so consistent, you would think that they didn't want to catch them right now.
Well, I think they can't catch them, especially on that downhill section of the course, because everybody rides at roughly the same speed. They will hope over the next 10 or 15 kilometres as they head into Digne-les-Bains for the first time that somebody else will take up the pacemaking once we get onto the slopes of that second category climb, the Col de Cordoban.
Well, as we watch the breakaway here now, they started the chase at around about, I think it was 97 kilometres. They actually started the chase. They've been chasing now for over 30 kilometres. Frankly, they haven't gained a second.
No, it's been locked in at exactly the same margin, but you have to look at it from another aspect. If they hadn't gone to the front to set the pacemaking, you would have seen this group have a 10 or 15 minute advantage.
That is true.
And I still think that what Robin McEwen is trying to do is spoil the chances of Hushovd and McEwen and Stuart O'Grady in that leading group, which is a good tactic because he has to look at points on every individual stage. If he gives away 20 or 30 points in the green jersey points classification today to those two riders, then yes, maybe he's losing that green jersey, a title he'd like to take for a third time.
Interesting to see that Thor Hushovd hasn't pulled on the green jersey, which is his by right today, and he would become, or will become tonight, I think, the first Norwegian to wear it. That's in deference to Tom Bonan today. I'm surprised the race referees didn't apply the same rule they applied to Lance Armstrong the other week.
Well, that's slightly different because in the overall classification on the previous day, Armstrong was at the top of the overall classification. The referees wouldn't have known until just before the start this morning that Tom Bonan wasn't going to come down to the starting gate. So the rules slightly different in the interpretation.
That's the word, interpretation. It's the same rule, and he should be wearing the jersey, of course. 3 minutes 58 is what they're saying at the moment. 56 kilometres to go, about 12 kilometres into Digne-les-Bains. Not too sure how they come, whether they come past it or not here. It's not clear by the rules, but they certainly come through the town, and the town is ready. Now then, here we go, our Cresto 3-day forecast as we continue on the Tour de France. Tomorrow, the little green bed there means a flat day and hot. Then we're back with Lance Armstrong, 2 days when he should attack, and 2 hot days in the Pyrenees. Saturday and Sunday, we are in for a hot weekend, and I don't just mean the weather, as Armstrong will try to rid himself of Michael Rasmussen, who has become the pretender to his crown, at 38 seconds only behind him. No one else is in sight of such a deficit on Lance so far. So what they lost in the Alps, they're going to have to try and take back in the Pyrenees. 3:55. After 30 kilometres of flat-out effort, we finally got inside 4 minutes. So they've gained probably 20 seconds. And that's all. As we're heading down the road here now on the descent towards Digne-les-Bains. Recognise this road from last night. It was dark then, of course. And these boys now sprinting it in. They'll come through the town. It's a bit of a climb out of the town, and it's all the roads once they get off this main sort of route nationale here are quite narrow, but they're absolutely marvellous bicycle riding roads. Lots of tourist routiers, the touring cyclists who come here for the holidays and enjoy the roads. Very quiet roads, not much traffic, even when the roads aren't closed to traffic. There aren't many cars down this part of the world. Sandy Cassar here would love to score for France, nearest camera. But they'll have to get rid of Stuart O'Grady and Thor Hushovd, who are fighting out the green jersey. We'll take a break, come back and rejoin us. We'll be far away. Welcome back to the Tour de France. Well, the boys behind are getting quite rapid now because they've got it down. It's into around the 3.5 minute mark, so they're making full use of the descent now. As they're saying 3:55 at the moment, but the lead is dropping quite quickly as they race towards Digne-les-Bains. It's all steadily downhill. The breakaway not as coordinated as you can see here, as the riders really aren't working very well together. Jose Luis Arrieta is the rider now joining the back. as they continue to course on the way. The peloton containing Lance Armstrong in his yellow jersey, the saying is it's still at 3:56, so they're being pegged again now, just inside 4 minutes. As we look, the sun is now right over the riders. It'll give us a chance then to join Frankie Andreu for the Infinity Technology of the Tour de France.
Besides the racing, there's a lot of technical issues that go on behind the Tour de France. For example, the timing, probably the most important. From the motorcycles to the helicopters to the planes to the TV trucks, all keeping track of the riders to make sure that their rankings are correct from the start all the way to the finish. For more than 12 years, M+ has been the official timekeeper for the Tour de France. When the riders depart each day, they're followed by 5 specific motorcycles equipped with a camera and a GPS system. There's also a camera in the helicopter, and these are what provide the images that you see on your television back home. Along with the pictures, a signal is also bounced via satellite from the helicopter to 2 planes high above the course back to the M+ timing trucks located at the finish line, which is then sent to all the television trucks in the technical zone, as well as the official Tour de France website. Along with all of this information, a chip is also attached to track every single bike in the race. There are loops located in specific areas along the race course. For example, as the riders approach a bonus sprint where points are accumulated toward the sprint jersey, the chip on their bike is detected, keeping both viewers, journalists, and the M+ timing crew up to date on the developments of the race. This is especially useful during the tense and often tight finishes on the early sprint stages where differences are often millimeters. Cameras set up right above the finish line provide the photo finish shot to ensure that the results are correct and then official. With a combination of technology from the ground to the air and with the Tour de France, M+ is able to keep track of every rider throughout the race. This is not only a benefit for the Tour de France, it's also a benefit for you, the viewer, because of the instantaneous updates during the race and at the finish.
Thanks, Frankie. That's the Infinity Technology question of the day. And my goodness me, I have to say, I thought just riding a bike was simple. Anyway, back with the riders here. This is the leading group, Yoshiba Bolocki there. And they are still not closing the gap that quick. Just looking on the horizon there, that's where Dean Leban is, that's where we are, that's where the race is coming now at very high speed, and the gap has gone back up again. 4 minutes now in the third hour of racing today. That's gone up as well. 50 in the first hour, kilometres this is, 37 kilometres in the second, 45.5 in the third, and that included a second category climb.
It really is a very fast tour. The average speed for the whole event has just gone down inside of 44 kilometres now to 43.9. I'm sure it'll slow down a bit over the weekend, but if we have stages like this, it really is going to be very dramatic. You can see these guys keep looking at themselves. Do we have to keep doing this? Do we have to keep setting the pace? They're starting to crack a fraction. Robbie McEwen's at the front, and the reason he's sitting there is to let the guys know that they've got to do the job for him. They've got to try and pull back the 2 sprinters, Ushoff and O'Grady, and they will hope that maybe as we get into the hilly section on the circuit around Dean Leban, that maybe Armstrong's team comes forward. CSC are not going to chase because they've got Giovanni Lombardi there. And Lance Armstrong looking very comfortable in the yellow jersey.
Well, I must say that this is a bit of a day off for Lance now. He couldn't have it better. He's got a breakaway that doesn't matter. He's almost smiling here, I think. And now Robin McEwen's decided De Vita Lotto must work. And so he's even called his team off the pacemaking. Couldn't work out better for him today. But they're pulling away the breakaway. It's gone up to 4 minutes, 11 seconds now as they head down towards Dean Leban. Well, this has been an excellent day for Lance, and he was saying this, don't mistake this day. He said it could be a very tough day, but it's worked out well for him, except for the loss, of course, of Manuel Beltran today. All right, well, here's our challenging question for you today as we go to break this time. It's our Subway trivia question. In the modern era, other than the number 1 traditionally given to the defending champion, which number has been ridden to victory more times than any other? Is it A, 51, B, 78, C, number 13, or D, number 2? We'll give you the answer after the break. That is the easiest one so far. Even I got it. We'll see you after the break.
On Wednesday, October 2nd, I was diagnosed with testicular cancer. The CAT scan revealed that my condition has spread into my abdomen. For now, I must focus on my treatment. However, I want all of you to know that I intend to beat this disease. And further, I intend to ride again as a professional cyclist.
Tour de France today, and we asked you with our Subway Tour trivia question, in the modern era, other than the number 1 traditionally given to the defending champion, which race number has been ridden to victory more than any other? And of course it is A, number 51, Eddie Merckx, Bernard Hinault, Pedro Delgado, need I go on, Luis Ocaña, they all scored number 51. That, by the way, is Eddie Merckx, but we'll ask you that question tomorrow. Bernard Thévenet, all the great names. They're all making a fortune now as the television commentators alongside the commentary position here. Here's the breakaway swinging into the town of Digne-les-Bains. We're home. Well, 4 minutes 31 seconds is the gap at the moment, Paul. And we're into the town of Digne-les-Bains. It's a lovely town. They have big celebrations here for Bastille Day yesterday. The fireworks always coming on the eve of Bastille Day, but we still managed to get some sleep.
Absolutely. These guys are suffering. This is the tough thing, you know. There's a lot of discussion going on. We've got to keep riding. We've heard from Robin McEwen we have to keep riding. Oh, really? Have I got to keep doing this? Well, the answer is yes, you have to keep doing this.
Easy.
Because McEwen wants this breakaway here this afternoon to fail.
Well, don't forget, as we're seeing the boys here, the last Frenchman, Richard Virenque, won stage 10 as Saint-Flour on Bastille Day. We also remember, in fact, remember at Mons, I think it's nearly 20 years ago now, no, 10 years ago.
94.
94, I can't believe it, when we watched Laurent Jalabert win.
And we're going up exactly the same climb this year in the last week of the Tour de France up to the Aerodrome in Mons, and it's a very difficult finish. And that win last year by Richard Virenque, by the way, was the day that he used to build up his massive lead in the King of the Mountains classification, as well as taking, of course, the stage victory on the big day for France.
And that gave him his 7 in the Tour de France, but that was 7 times winner of the King of the Mountains, which is a record. This year, of course, we're looking for a 7 for Lance Armstrong, and that will be a record.
It certainly would.
There's the breakaway. They stayed away. I really thought this breakaway would have come through here with 10 or 15 minutes lead, but because of the chasing by McEwen's team, they still have got that 4 minutes plus, and they're just holding it. They're not catching them. They're chasing Axel Merckx, who is indeed the teammate and a likely winner today. It's just a Tour de Stage he'll ride away alone on.
Well, that's very much the way Axel Merckx got his victory in the Dauphiné just a couple of weeks before the start of the Tour de France. He took off a long way from the finish and held on to win. In fact, climbed up high in the overall classification. He's a great bike rider, Axel, and the difficult and sad thing for him is he carries that famous name, Merckx. Everybody compares anything that Axel ever does to his dad. And he was actually quite philosophical at the end of the Dauphiné Libéré, because somebody said, oh, your dad did this, your dad did that.
He said, must be tired of that.
He said, my dad won every race that there was to win. I'm never going to emulate him. I'll never do what he did. So don't ever try and compare me to what my dad did, because you can't.
No, of course you can't. Axel has won 12 races in his career. His dad, Eddie, won 525. No games. So we're looking for my helicopter now. This is a nice view of Digne-les-Bains. A little bit too modern the housing down there for my taste, but there's plenty of old housing around here. This is a very historical part of the world of France. They have a special geological park here because of the formation of the rocks. That's the breakaway. And they're doing very well. They're out on the circuit now. These are the Lance fans, and that's a good cue for me, because we're telling you this Lance 25 is brought to you by BMW. And let's have a look now at our Lance Top 25 moments. This is number 10. This is when the US Postal Service won the team time trial. The first time an American team had won the Race of Truth as a team. This was stage 4 of the 2003 event. And this was one of Lance's most pleasing moments, was to win as a team, because they think as a team, they ride as a team. Lance wins the Tour, but here they won as a team. And don't forget, you can vote for your top 5 Lance moments from our 25 suggestions by just coming to see us at olntv.com and casting your vote. There's the field down below the trees, coursing through Digne-les-Bains. They don't come to the finishing line, I've now found out on this circuit. They slip down the side of us and race off into the road. They're very quickly out of town again. And the roads are so narrow here, they're queuing up to get round the corners. All this crowd here, they're just over to my right, will be rushing to the finishing line now, but they can take the time because it'll be just over an hour before the field come down to the finish in Digne-les-Bains at the end of their day today. Well, you can see by the pacemaking by De Vietem and Lotto here, they're not going to catch up with those riders. They're just trying to limit their escape. So it's still odds on that one of those riders up front will win the day. We'll know soon. Come back and see us. Welcome back. The leaders of the Tour de France are still not being reeled in by the chasers here from the boys in red, De Vietem and Lotto. There's still over 4 minutes difference as they're now leaving the town of Digne-les-Bains. Just on 40+ kilometres to ride, and they're now starting the long climb of the Col du Corabin, which is in fact 12.4 kilometres long. Now here's something for all you kids to go and buy, because it is rather a nice little cartoon. It's called MikeandTheBike.com, and it's time for the Tour, kids, so log on to MikeandTheBike.com for all of the action from the Tour de France. Games, tour facts, daily updates. It's sponsored by OLN and Mike and the Bike. It's available at Amazon.com and all of your favourite bookstores. Little Mike and the Bike, not a bad rider. Pacemaking being made now. Looks like Mancebo's got himself onto the frontier, is it? Oh, I beg your pardon, because it's Arrieta. We're back up with the leaders. This is Jose Luis Arrieta, who is now settling in on the Col du Corabin. Well, this climb, Paul, of the Col du Corabin is 12.5 kilometres long. It started just as they left the town. It's a long way up. It is a perfect springboard now for the climbers to try and shed the sprinters.
Well, that's what they have to do if they want to win here this afternoon, because everybody in this breakaway knows that the two fastest men are the man on the front there, Stuart O'Grady, and the man in third place, Thor Hushovd. And that's why they will try, if they can, to falsify their company with this group of 13 riders. I wouldn't be surprised to see the move come from one of the Italians at the back here, Franco Pellizotti. He's a great bike rider, regarded as a star of the future. But why not the sprinter there, man who actually can sprint on occasions, wearing number 99, Angel Vicioso.
Yes, well, he once was disqualified from a sprint finish in the Tour of Italy for bad riding, and the rides themselves felt he'd been badly dealt with. He might be able to sprint this time. This is the breakaway, chapping up the climb of the Col du Corabin. I think we can take to the AMD fact file on this. As it looks like it might be an attacker. That could be Stuart O'Grady starting the move here, the way he's riding his bike. And this is interesting because Stuart O'Grady is just trying to test them, but he's being watched very closely by Thor Hushovd. He's not going anywhere just now. Little gentle lifting of the pace, I think, on this long climb. It'll be a very, very fast climb, this. Let's remind ourselves then where we are today in this beautiful part of the department of the Haute-Provence. We left Noirmoutier, we've gone right across northern France, we've come right down through the Alps to the far bottom of the map on the right there. We're now coursing to Digne-les-Bains. They've seen it once, and they've got to go round again. This is our Mitcham map, and this is the route today. We've left Briançon, through the valleys for a while, then over the Col Saint-Jean, the Seleneg sprint, back into the valleys, over the Col de l'Orme. That'll bring us the last climb into the finish in Digne-les-Bains. We haven't got there yet. There's the ripples, but on the last second category climb there, the Col du Corabin, and then we've got the Col de l'Orme bringing us back into Digne-les-Bains for the finish today. Cheers from the fans and the big tempo riding. We've now got Moncoutier setting the pace there, and it looks as though it's forced. Now, what's going on here? Because this is O'Grady dropping to the back with Thor Hushovd. They are just marking each other because of the green jersey competition, and it looks as though that they've gone to the back now, and they might be starting to get into a little bit of personal rivalry there as they mark each other. That's interesting. Well, we'll have plenty of time to find out more about what's going on, because when we come back after the break, 30 minutes of uninterrupted coverage of the Tour de France. See you in a moment. Welcome back. You rejoin us now on the slopes of the Col du Corabin, which has a nasty sting in the tail. The attacks have started from the leading group. Currently, it is David Moncoutier, who won last year at Figeac, is now putting in quite a forceful move here. I think we can show you that again. This is how it happened. This happened about less than a minute ago as he moves away from the front group. And there is the remnants of the breakaway, but also struggling behind now is Stuart O'Grady and Thor Hushovd. They've been caught out at the back of the race. Well, if we knew there'd be attacks here on this climb, I expected Juan Manuel Garate, who's riding very well in the yellow and red strip there, but I suppose being Bastille Day, you do best to put all your money on a Frenchman going for it. David Moncoutier, who won last year in Figeac, is trying to make it another stage victory this time around.
Well, he's had a good season. He was in great form in the Dauphiné Libéré just a couple of weeks before the start of the Tour de France. He finished 6th overall. He had a win at the start of the season too in the Tour of the Pays Basque, but in the first week of the racing, he, like a lot of other riders, took the risk of sitting at the back end of the main field. He's lost a bit of time in the overall classification, but that's not really what's important to him. He's 42 minutes back, and I think for him, he's decided in the latter part of his career that instead of trying to ride high in the overall standings, he's just going to go for individual stages.
Right, he's ridden, this will be his 6th Tour de France, the best finish in 2002 of 13th. And that's about where his ability is going to take him, I think. So he's looking now at what would be an extraordinary day for him today. Lance Armstrong has said if a Frenchman wins on Bastille Day, he becomes the latest superhero of the sport. And that's absolutely true. He's got 10 seconds at the moment. The peloton, with the chase being abandoned by De Vitamin Lotto, have slipped out to over 5 minutes now. So they won't see this breakaway today. It started at 63 kilometres. And they've gone ever since. And it looks as though now it is the winning move, and one of these guys is going to take it out.
Well, if they want to take it out, they're going to have to do something a bit special to try and pull back David Moncoutier. But there is still an awful long ride from the top of this coalfield down to the finish, because as they cross the summit of the Corobin, they're still looking at 30 kilometres, and they can get themselves organised. And, of course, Stuart O'Grady and Thor Hushovd, if they don't panic, they've got the ability to come back on the descent.
As long as they don't start arguing back there and say, OK, let's work together, let's catch them up, and then decide who's going to be the best of the riders. That's the only way they'll get back into it now. They will both score points in the green jersey competition wherever they finish, because there's 13 riders here and points go down far lower than that. This is what they call an average mountain stage. The points vary on each type of a stage. Looking down there, that is Thor Hushovd, and I think that is good news for O'Grady, because Hushovd has hit the wall here. He's not a great climber. Camera's moving up, and I think we'll pick up Stuart O'Grady further up the climb. Well, at least they resurfaced the road here on the Col de Corobin for the arrival of the Tour. That is not to O'Grady. That is Lombardy who's gone.
That was Shrek.
And then there's
That
Shrek.
is Lombardy.
Oh, of course he's changed teams, hasn't he? No, he's team by Lombardy. That was Lombardy who's gone. This is Shrek.
No.
And then that is O'Grady with him.
Lombardy rides for Team CSC in second place there, just behind O'Grady.
I wish they'd
He's
stop
changed teams
moving
a lot,
around.
Lombardy.
Are you
I
kidding?
have to give you the benefit of the doubt, because he's ridden for Mario Cipollini, he's ridden for Alessandro Patacchi, he's ridden for Eric Zabel. He's actually now riding for Ivan Basso.
Well, obviously they must pay better. So we're looking down now at a breakaway totally split. As I say, they'll get points. Once they're over the top of the Corobin, 31 kilometres to go, they've got the little ripple of the Col de l'Orme. Then they're down to the finish.
25 seconds his advantage over the small group of... Axel Merckx is the man doing the majority of the pacemaking in that chase. I think what they'll try and do is just limit the advantage that they've got and try and pull him back together on the descent, because over the summit of this climb there's a long descent down to the outskirts of Digne-les-Bains, and then another nasty little fourth category climb down towards the end.
Solid move by David Moncoutier this. He's 30 years of age now. As he continues, he knows this is a serious move. He knows the pressure he's under here. He is the teammate too of Stuart O'Grady. So O'Grady, well, he's not going to think about it anyway, but very valuable second string to the Cofidis Pro today, Moncoutier, and a very typical man for the mountains. The peloton are at 5 minutes 16 now. The breakaway is splitting up. Axel Merckx leading the chase here, best of the rest. They must have known that David Moncoutier would try this sort of a move, but they obviously couldn't do anything about it. At the moment, Moncoutier, 44th in the Tour de France, is clear, and there is a group of 7 riders chasing. The drop from that group now is Giovanni Lombardi, Stuart O'Grady, Thor Hushovd, all unhitched at the back, but they should stay away from the main field here to get in before the bunch, because they've slipped away now for the moment at 5 1/4 minutes. Once the De Vitamin Lotto team of McEwen were called off, then the breakaway started to move out just a little bit. Even so, the 13 guys up front all get points today in the green jersey.
Yes, there's slightly less points today than on a truly flat stage because this stage is categorized as a medium mountain stage. So there's only 25 points for the first rider to cross the line, and the first 20 riders on this stage will actually get points for this classification. But O'Grady, I think, had in the back of his mind a knowledge that Thor Hushoff was going to have a hard time on this climb. But he is in a precarious situation. He's got to make sure he doesn't lose too much over the summit of this climb. And if he can, he will pull himself back together on the descent. But we're still facing up to the most difficult part of this climb. It's 5 kilometers to go to the summit. And Moncoutier is holding on to around about a 40-second advantage over this group, and then just 15 seconds back to Stuart O'Grady. So looking around the corner there, we might just get a spot of the Australian.
He might creep back in, but even if he is to win today, he's got to win or finish in the first 2 or 3 to win the green jersey lead. And at the moment he doesn't look like doing that because he's 21 points behind Thor Hushoff overnight, and Hushoff, if he gets the finish, will be the first Norwegian rider to lead in that competition. 5 kilometers to go. Little bit surprised to see a climber like Arrieta struggling today, but he is. As he, this is Vicioso, sorry, the last shot was Arrieta. They're all getting dropped here from Liberty Seguros. It's becoming quite a high tempo there. We've now only got 6 riders left in there. Merck, Shunti, Gerati, Halgan, Pelazzotti, Kazar, and as I speak, we're losing another one here.
This is Massimo Giunti, can't take the pressure, and the pressure is being given out at the front of this group by Axel Merckx. Merckx must be just starting to sniff the victory a fraction here. He's the man of these long breakaways, and he'll have a few questions if he wins the stage to the tactics of the team here this afternoon as to why they didn't give him confidence. He's definitely the strongest man in this group. He was caught out a little bit by the acceleration first of Stuart O'Grady, then that was backed up by the acceleration of Moncoutier. Pelazzotti is the next casualty of this acceleration, this unbelievable pressure being put on the front by Axel Merckx, who is not asking anybody to come up here and assist him.
Well, this is Pelazzotti. He's next to unhitch here as they head up towards the top of the climb. He's going to hang on, of course. Moncoutier has gone over the top. Merckx is driving the train. There's only one little climb left. These are brilliant racing roads, and they favour the rider who escapes because he's round the corner and he's out of sight. The peloton are slipping back now to almost 6 minutes.
Well, don't get too excited about this descent because this is not the summit of the climb. There's a little bit of a descent and a false flat in the middle, and then we kick up for another 2 or 3 kilometers, and that in fact is the steepest part of the climb. But this part of the climb might just give the advantage, and you see Franco Pelazzotti's recovered there. He's managed to come back onto the tail. I'm sure Massimo Giunti will come back, and Stuart O'Grady is actually only about 17 seconds off the back of this group, and he's pretty good downhill, especially when he's motivated.
Absolutely. Well, that banner, in fact, which a lot of riders seem to sprint for there, they've still got 4 kilometers here of the climb left. So this is the false flat, and then it'll kick up again. Nice little group here now of 6 as they start. Pelazzotti, who's a very aggressive rider. This is Sandy Cassar. And I don't think the others are going to come back because O'Grady and Giovanni Lombardi are timed at the moment about 40 seconds or so. And Sheck is behind them, and it's 20-odd, 25 seconds back to Thor Hushoff. He's last of the 13 now.
Yeah, but that's only 15 seconds from the tail end of that group of Merckx actually to Stuart O'Grady. So working with Lombardi, I think he's still got a very good chance of coming back. The main field, though, are not interested.
Well, once ago, no, forget the main field now. They're going to ride home in the sun. This is what they want. This is the perfect day for Lance Armstrong now. Race done. But they'll be ruining the day, of course, because of the loss of Manuel Beltran. They don't lose many men, Team Discovery. But today, a crash has taken out Beltran. Looking at our heart rate monitor, we're looking at Vladimir Carpentier, the white jersey winner of last year. Patrice Algon is up there in the group, climbing at 20 kilometres an hour today at 148 beats to the minute. And Carpenter slipped away this year to 52nd after being the best rookie of the Tour last year.
Very strange that, because he's a man that a lot of people tip. This is Brad McGee, and you see a lot of riders, Phil, a lot of big names are very tired in this Tour de France. McGee, in fact, was one of the first attackers of the day, as we get information over Race Radio that David Moncoutier has now got a 30-second advantage over that group led by Axel Merckx.
So we're looking here at David Moncoutier now setting himself fair for a possible win back in Digne-les-Bains. I'm wondering, in fact, if David Moncoutier will stay away. 33 kilometres to go to the finish now. He's working his heart out. It's a big moment. To win on Bastille Day is a very special moment for a Frenchman. There were 3 of them in the original breakaway of 13. The breakaway has split, but there are still 6 riders chasing. And once over the top of the climb of the Col de Colomban, which is about 2 kilometres or so to the top now, and then he's got a little bit of downhill to the Col de Lorme, which isn't a great challenge at all. Once over the top of the Col de Lorme, 10 kilometres to the line. And he'll be cheered all the way by the French now. And this will really put his name on the map.
Well, it's a big chase, I think, behind for Stuart O'Grady, but Axel Merckx's group has lost themselves 30 seconds. But this man very shortly will start to climb up to the final big summit of this day's stage, and that's the Col de Colomban. But he does have that final little pimple on the horizon, the Col de Lorme, which is situated very nicely at 10 kilometres to go to the line.
Number 104 is Algon. And a good climber he is too. Garati looking as though he's getting a bit twitchy there. Number 81 sits on the wheel of Algon. And the other rider here, just sitting at the back, is Arietta.
Arietta's no stranger to the Tour. It's actually Arietta's 6th attempt at the Tour de France. And Govicioso on the back there. This is a bit further back. This is one of the chasers, 2 of the chasers. In fact, Thor Hushovd has joined Stefan Schreck here. They're around about a minute behind the leading rider, so they're only 30 seconds behind the group which contains Axel Merckx. And Thor Hushovd super motivated here to try and pull himself back into this race.
Well, we're at the finishing line, and as you can probably hear, there's an awful lot of American fans down here chanting, waiting for the arrival of the Tour. It won't be long now. There won't be an American winner today. I think we can safely say that. This breakaway is not going to be caught. As now we cut our way through the field here, up towards Stuart O'Grady, who's still climbing with Stefan Schreck. Oh, sorry, Giovanni Lombardi, isn't it? That's CSC.
Yeah, Lombardi, a very good sprinter, but these 2 guys, and not surprisingly, put under a little bit of difficulty here on the slopes of this climb. It's 2 climbers, one being chased by another, but Thor Hushovd slowly seems to be pulling himself back here to Stuart O'Grady, and there they are. In fact, they're not really separated by very much more than 12 seconds. But it's a good day for Team Cofidis, because Cofidis, in fact, have got 1 lone leader, and here David Moncoutier is around about 30 seconds still ahead of the Axel Merckx group.
If Merckx can organise the chase, he will do. As the riders now are just flipping off the back. And this is Junti just concentrating here, hoping the hill ends and he'll get back on the descent. But it's just over 1 kilometre still to climb, and this is the hardest part of the climb now. For that reason, Pelazzotti looks as though they've unhitched him. Franco Pelazzotti. It's amazing how this race is cracking up. A lot of it is not to do with the gradient, but indeed with the weather today. These riders have been out in front since the 63rd kilometre today, and they haven't got many left to ride. And it's thinning out rather rapidly. This is a fine piece of riding by Moncoutier. We saw it in Figeac last year, and he's at it again now.
Very similar tactics by him in this year's Tour de France as he had last year on the road to Figeac, because exactly the same situation. He joined a breakaway. They got a big advantage over the main field, and as he got that little bit closer to the finish, he took off. There is the main field just going under that banner, which the riders probably in the leading group thought was the top of the mountain. But sorry to say, guys, got 4.5 kilometres to go to the top.
Just looking at 1 or 2 of the riders in the peloton stretching the backs, they probably think they're over the top as well. But the hard bit is still to come here, as we can see. Now, is that the top? I'm not sure even that is top. These banners are put out on the course today. This is Junti going back.
Still a couple of kilometres to go to the summit. Junti, 136th overall at the start of the day. A long way behind Lance Armstrong, but again, finding a little bit of courage there, just getting out of the saddle. The gradient has got a fraction easier, so he picks it up. The team manager's cars come by him, and he will hope that before they start the descent, he will manage to integrate the group.
So the peloton at 6:28, 31 kilometres, 20 miles to race. And the peloton are having their first day off now in the Tour de France. They're able to cruise a little bit here. This is the rider who decided Bastille Day was for him. David Moncoutier, 3 hours, 40 minutes in the saddle, and there's still a chance he's going to win it.
Well, he's setting himself up to have a very big advantage here, but he still, once he gets over the summit of this climb, got a long pursuit down towards the end, and it's an not really that easy, because he does still have to face up to, after the summit of this climb, the climb of the Col de l'Orme, which goes up for around about 3 kilometers. But he will be very motivated here this afternoon, because this is the Tricolore Day. This is the Bastille Day, the 14th of July, the day that all of the French want to win on, and he may well be able to do that, just as Richard Virenque did last year on the road down to Saint-Flour. And what a difficult day that was as well.
It certainly was, but the Saint-Flour is always in a difficult part of the world. But he got the victory then for Bastille Day. The French have not had a victory yet in the Tour de France, so now is the day to have one. 40 seconds to the pursuers, a minute 35 to the remnants. Thor Hushoff dangling in a minute 50. The peloton, they'll be heading out towards 7 minutes.
Grady will probably be a little bit saddened by the fact that he wasn't able to stay on the back end of this group. He was hoping so much this afternoon that he'd get himself a big lead. And there you can see that is O'Grady. I'm looking to see where Thor Hushoff is. They've been joined there by Stefan Schreck. Stefan Schreck was a few moments ago riding alongside Thor Hushoff. So now there's a three-man chase group behind the group of Axel Merckx. It's Stefan Schreck, Giovanni Lombardi, and of course Stuart O'Grady.
Just looking at the excitement here on the faces of the French as they cheer the leader up this mountain. They're trying to drag him over the top now. There's the banging on the door, because that is the top of the Col de Corabin. 31 kilometers now. A lot of it is downhill. Watch these descents here. They're very narrow and sinuous. This is the chase group. It's not a big time gap just yet. As they now come up towards the top. Cheers there for Bobby Julich. The French flags, Norwegian flag flying on the right. As Axel Merckx has virtually set the pace all the way up this climb. Garati is planning on his best finish here too. He's in second behind Merckx. Merckx looking to see if anybody's going to come through and steal the points. I think Garati might have a go. And he is too. He's taking second place. He's climbing up the King of the Mountains with that. Merckx over in third. And little Arietta hanging on at the back. Well, 1:35 across the field. They still have a chance to catch him. As they now go down the mountain, this is the leader, and these are the tortuous corners here. It looks as though they've resurfaced all of this road, especially for the Tour de France, and thank heavens they have, because these little narrow roads in this region can be very uneven.
Very uneven, very precarious and technical. Now into the corner here, he's going to have to brake quite hard, because this is a very serious left-hander. And you can see, just looking at the road surface there, why this road has been resurfaced in a number of places, because it is very uneven, very bumpy. As you can see, the cameraman having a hard job here actually keeping the picture steady. This man will take all kinds of risks. He's still got around about 40 minutes of effort to get himself to the finish.
This is a big effort, but he requires it now. He's made his move. He knows if he gets caught, there won't be any more move further back down the mountain. Just see if I can work out who that is who's passed through, but I can't, as he's gone. Don't think it was Stuart O'Grady. The line of Flanders flag, the Belgian Flanders flag flying there in yellow. And it may have been Junti who's just gone through there, the Fassa Bortolo rider, as we move back up to the leader.
Coutier down in a very low aerodynamic position. Fortunately, these roads have been nicely resurfaced for this descent, which is a narrow descent. Their main organisers, I think, were not expecting here, Phil, to have a massive bunch sprint. There's Stefan Schreck, Stuart O'Grady, and Giovanni Lombardi. O'Grady, did you see the way he just looked over his shoulder there? He was looking to see if he could see the whereabouts of one Thor Hushoff.
Well, he's gaining a couple of points, so he won't get the lead today, but he'll get that little bit closer to it. He's finished second and third in this competition in Paris. He hopes one day he takes home the green jersey. He was very upset not to be the first Australian to do so. That fell to Robbie McEwen, and has done so since then, while Baden Cook has also won it. Now O'Grady would become the third Australian winner were it to happen. A lot of work to be done yet before that is the case, but today he can get closer to Thor Hushoff, the new leader. This is the descent. Got to watch the careful descent on these roads. Remember, Oscar Pereiro yesterday tried to have a bite to eat and left via the side of the mountain. Fortunately, okay.
Fortunately, he was okay. In fact, Thor Hushoff is not that far behind Stuart O'Grady. A quick time check there showed him going over the summit of that climb only 10 seconds behind O'Grady, so there's going to be a big battle on the downhill section.
He'll be back.
They're a fair way back, riders like Stuart O'Grady and Thor Hushoff. I'm not sure that they will be able to actually nail them back. Pelizzotti's come back, though. I wonder where he came from.
Well, he didn't lose a lot, but he did lose enough. But you see how quickly they get themselves organised on the way down. They take a few chances, clip the corners a bit tighter than those with no need to hurry. And before you know it, you're back. I feel that Thor Hushoff will be back alongside O'Grady in the next couple of kilometres or so. This is the leader, though. David Moncoutier of Cofidis, same team as O'Grady. He is just whipping down this mountain. And this would be a huge coup for him.
It would be a huge coup for him, and he's a great rider now. I think that he's decided to go for individual stages. Pelizzotti just going round Vicioso there, wants to move up a little bit in the line. He's a lot happier being in third or fourth position. Merckx is the man doing the majority of the pacemaking on this descent. For a big bike rider, he's an incredibly good, agile descender. He's got a great position on his bike. Probably helped a lot by his dad, who used to be Mr. Millimeter himself before Lance Armstrong took over that title.
Indeed he did. Now the riders here snaking down. There'll be a fast descent behind as well by O'Grady. I'm certain of that, as he might try to hook up with these boys. More green jersey points, the more riders he beats. There's O'Grady's second wheel at the minute. Streck is behind, Lombardi's in front. Finally got it right as they start the descent down the mountain. Where is Hushoff? There he is, and he will be on very shortly, chasing across the gap.
Well, it's important for him this afternoon. It's really a little bit question of pride. Straight past the team manager's car. These team managers, not only do they look in front of them on a race like this, they've got to be very, very careful using the rear view mirror all of the time, because the race is always unfolding and there's riders going forwards and backwards. You've got to be so careful in a race situation.
Well, O'Grady's got a big problem on his hands there, because I think Hushoff is faster than him in a straight sprint, and he's going to get back on with only a small climb to come. And O'Grady won't like that. But here we have the leader on the way down, David Moncoutier. He won stage 11 of the Tour de France last year. Now he's a bit out of touch because this is stage 12. But he's trying to make it for France on Bastille Day. And you can see this technically is a very, very difficult descent. All in the favour. The peloton won't take risks going down here.
Not at all. They're already over 7 minutes in arrears. And as soon as Team Lotto de Vitamont stopped working at the front, the gap really stretched out. Which makes me think that maybe that wasn't such a great request by Robbie McEwen, because he's almost assassinated his team here this afternoon for zero, for nothing, for no reason at all.
Yeah.
When tomorrow is a stage, Phil, when he's going to really have to count upon them.
I think so, and this is Fabian Cancellara here, slipping off the back of the peloton right now. Well, that's a bit of a surprise, but he seems to be cracking on these climbs every time he tries them. The peloton could split here. The riders know what's the point of making the big effort to hang on when we're under pressure. We'll never get eliminated in the last 30 kilometres of the day because they'll race home, so they won't make big efforts. But at 25 kilometres to go, this is a much better report coming for David Moncoutier.
Yes,
he's won, one race this year, 13 in his career.
Yes, but he's got a good time gap now. It's actually just come through. It's been registered at 38 seconds as they go through their 25 kilometres to go.
Watch these corners. No risks should be taken here. The riders at the back have got to keep a very tight line, otherwise they get whipped into the wall.
Vicioso is the man at the back. Axel Merckx is doing a magnificent descent at the front end of this race. He knows he's got to take serious risks now. He doesn't have to think about holding anything back. This is the four-man group. This is the group that contains the, I suppose I have to say, three sprinters, because that's Giovanni Lombardi leading them around there ahead of Stuart O'Grady. And in fourth place in the green is Thor Hushoff, who's actually managed to bring himself back. But they're a long way back. 30 seconds is the time difference between Moncoutier and the group of Axel Merckx, but it's another 1.5 minutes back to that small group of the sprinters.
Well, what we're going to see today now, if it stays like this, is one man win on his own and two sprints for our money, because we'll have a violent sprint between O'Grady and Hushoff because of the green jersey points. Then there will be a sprint, of course, as to who takes the peloton, and Robbie McEwen will be looking to win that for sure, to limit his losses today. So this is going to be a good day of racing for us today in glorious conditions. This is the top now of the Col de Corabin. The peloton coming up, all led by Team Discovery. Very familiar sight. One less today now with the abandon of Manuel Beltran, who crashed and hurt his knee. This was the attack that may yet decide the day. Out in front, David Moncoutier, a small group of 6 trying to nail him back. We'll take a break, rejoin us shortly. The image of the day of today's stage of the Tour de France, raced in glorious sunshine and high weathers. The riders continue here on the road from Briançon to Digne-les-Bains. The breakaway has regrouped, except, of course, out front is still David Moncoutier, and behind are the three sprinters trying to get on. Stuart O'Grady principally, and Thor Hushovd. Their rider, there he is, as he goes under 20 kilometres to go now, David Moncoutier. And looking to me as though it's going to be a difficult problem for the boys behind, because he is not showing any signs of slowing down. Stage 11 was his win last year. Stage 12 he's looking for this year, but this one will put him up amongst the greats of the French riders in the Tour de France, because he will win on Bastille Day. Here's the chasers, though. That doesn't seem very long, does it, before they go under 20 kilometres to go. So they've just come down that great descent, and one of the big descents was done by the leader, of course, David Moncoutier. Let's have a look then at our Saab power descent today. And look at this for descending. David Moncoutier, in fact, was pulling away from the rest of the breakaway at this point, using the apex of every corner, just checking the machine enough to drop down. Not many spectators go on watch riders on the descent, but as they go down here, probably in the region of 50-60 kilometres an hour because of all the corners, rather tortuous. This was the chase down, being led by Sandy Cassar. That's our power descent from Saab. And there is the lone man still out there, but it's beginning to look as though the chase is closing in. 25 seconds. Well, the reverse is happening, Paul. I really thought he was gone, but Axel Merckx's attack has caused a reaction. As our camera pulls back here, we are waiting to see now the chase, and a long straight road. All of a sudden, it's no longer conducive to the breakaway.
Very tough. He's going to go into a slightly more difficult part of the course, but that is still around about the 30-second margin. The thing going against David Moncoutier now, as you can see, all of the riders in that seven-man group are sharing the pacemaking. They've now got some organisation. They realise this is a big chance to get the win.
Being led by that big, tall, thin Belgium. And this is Arietta here, asking for more speed.
Well, you're not going to get the rider from Crédit Agricole, Patrice Algon, to go forward there, because he knows behind there's a big race chasing for his team sprinter, Thor Hushovd. So he won't do anything at all to contribute to the pacemaking there, because he wants this man, number 106, to catch up with that group, with still, in fact, the possibility of winning the stage.
I think if he gets back, it's going to be a real tussle between him and Stuart O'Grady as to who does win the stage. And O'Grady can't do anything either, because this is his teammate, David Moncoutier, who's making the move for victory, and he's French. And you can't spoil a Frenchman's day out on Bastille Day, although ask Axel Merckx that right now. The gap sits at 25 seconds. The seven chasers, Jose Luis Arietta, Axel Merckx, Juan Manuel Garate, Ander Vicioso, Patrice Algon, Franco Pelazzotti and Sandy Cassar. Two Frenchmen still back in the chase group.
Two Frenchmen in the chase group, and actually if you look at this group here, Phil, it's very difficult actually to pick a winner from this group, because these riders, not one of them is really that much of a sprinter. They're all meant to look for the lone breakaway.
The Col de l'Orme is going to be quite decisive, maybe. So these are the riders going down the hill. Oh, and there's trouble here at the back. Now, this, in fact, is Malocchi here, but this is way at the back of the field, unfortunately, because they were down there. Oh, it's Heras, I beg your pardon. Roberto Heras not enjoying his race, but it's not a day you want to lose time, is it? And he might well lose time now, because he's just come over the top of the Col de Colomban. He'll have to descend quickly to get back in touch with the Tour today as we speed towards the finish. See you in a moment. And welcome back to the Tour. That is the 15 kilometres to go banner for the man who's still ahead, but they're hanging on to his shirt tails now. This is David Moncoutier. Just on half a minute, the gap. The peloton has dropped out of the race today. They're over 8 minutes behind. And Lance Armstrong will take another yellow jersey at the finishing line, because there is nobody ahead of the bunch today who will affect the destiny of the yellow. But this rider isn't even thinking about that. David Moncoutier on Bastille Day for France is trying to fly the flag. In fact, his jersey is almost the colours of the French flag. And the chase group, as you can see, they are also under the 15 kilometres to go. They are closing in. I don't think he's going to make it yet anyway. Well, while he keeps up with his force, what about the E-Force? A Tangled Turtle's life is on the line, and a reckless jet skier tries to outrun the hammer. It's never just another day at the beach for the E-Force. Up next, immediately following our live coverage here of the Tour de France. So, it looks as though David Moncoutier is now in trouble. There he is, just up the road. Juan Manuel Garate here, trying to get his bottle sorted out as he's inside 15 kilometres to go. Quick drink, still extremely hot here. It's coming up now to 4 o'clock local time. And just out of sight of these riders, we have seen David Moncoutier go round the corner. I'm not sure he can hold on to this, Paul.
Going to be hard because he's not really in a terrain that suits a lone breakaway, because these long straight roads have this man in the sight of the breakaway all of the time. It's hovering at 30 seconds, and on a road like this that corresponds to about 500 or 600 meters, and they will see the cars behind David Moncoutier and they will be spurred on by it.
Well, the thing is that he had to go on the top of the Col de Colomban. That gave him the platform for an attack. It may have been too far away from the finish to be successful. These riders have assembled themselves right behind him at just under 14 kilometres to go. The only thing that might help him is they're not working together well enough to catch him. The main field with Armstrong over 8.5 minutes behind now. So that's their day done, and they won't be disappointed with that, not at least the team Discovery.
Well, they've had a good day out, and they've got a big help from Team Lotto de Vitamon, who I think will probably have to pay for that effort tomorrow. Now, these are the 5 chasers, the group of the sprinters. Shrek is in this group. He's the man in the pink jersey from T-Mobile. In the green is Torhushoff, Giovanni Lombardi. They picked up Massimo Giunti just a little bit ago, so they've got 5 riders, but they're still 2 minutes and 20 seconds in arrears.
Yes, they're not going to get up today, so they'll have to cross swords, but they'll have to sprint O'Grady and Hushoft. Every point will count. This rider just wants to be first, not interested in points, not interested in the first prize, not interested in the yellow jersey. Just wants to be first for France today. That's all he wants. But it's still touch and go. What he wants now is to see the slopes of the Col de l'Orme, because as a climber, he might be able to lift it again.
That just might help him. It's a 2.5 kilometre climb, and it's not really very steep at 3%, but it will give him the advantage, I think, over this group here. But this group itself will contain some pretty good climbers. Axel Merckx, Pellizotti, Patrice Algon, Arrieta. They're all men who know how to go up fairly well.
I'm just wondering what Vicioso is doing there, opening the door, waving everybody past. Sandy Cassar would not like that. Patrice Algon back in that group at the moment. His heart continues to beat at a very content 129 beats per minute, compared with his maximum of 171. So he's reached, maybe he's getting tired right now. Here is the group still trying to nail him back, and this is the rider's eye view, chasing the break. Still all working, you know, each man going through, doing his fast turn.
Everyone doing his turn now. I can see a race situation here. If they pull David Moncoutier back, which for the moment they are not doing, but if they do, that man in the dark blue jersey from Liberty Seguros has got a great chance of winning. Angel Vicioso.
Yeah.
He's a fairly good turn of speed. But this man will have something else to say about it, because despite the fact that he's been away for around about 15 kilometres now, he's still holding on to that 30-second advantage.
And he's suffering to do it as well here. He might recover. When he goes up, a climber settles down a bit better. 2:21, the time gap goes back now to the second chase on the road, which is the O'Grady group. We are 12 kilometres from seeing Dean Leban for the final time today. David Moncoutier made his move on leaving the town towards the top of the Col de Colomban. These boys don't look quite so fluid anymore now. They're beginning to think who's going to make the effort. And once they start discussing that, the usual answer is nobody does. 30 seconds, still the gap. Now it's back to 9 minutes to the peloton. So they're going slowly but surely into the distance.
Well, it makes you think even more how crazy that move was by Robbie McEwen, asking the team to go forward and ask those guys to ride for almost 60 kilometres on the front of the main field, when if he'd had a good look at the race profile, he probably could have figured out that Stuart O'Grady would have a hard time on the slopes of that second category col.
But he will get points, but it won't be serious points. He won't win the stage, but then he would have got serious points.
Well, they could still look at getting themselves around about 10 points, and that's at the end of the day what could be the difference between winning and losing. In fact, a couple of years ago when it went down to Baden Cook and Robbie McEwen, It went down to the final sprint of the day, and they actually were locked side by side as they crossed the line on the Champs-Élysées. Baden Cook just inching ahead of Robin McEwen on that occasion.
Taking the jersey. What an amazing race that was. Race for 21 days. It's the final finishing sprint on the last day. They're a little bit uphill now as we move up, because we topped this at 10 k's from the summit. The Col de l'Orme, just getting on the base of it now. Working his whole body. Any energy you have left now, you give away to the bike, because you can't save anything for the finish. If you get caught, then you finish last of the group, but you've got to give it your best shot now.
You don't want to get to the finish line after a breakaway like this with a little bit of energy left, because then you haven't done your job to absolute perfection. You can hear the French crowd shouting, Ali David, Ali David. They want him to win for France here this afternoon. But Axel Merckx has really got the bit between the teeth here. In fact, we're just getting another little time check, Phil. It's stretched out by 5 seconds to 35 seconds. Moncoutier just might have it with this climb.
Well, it's the slopes that do it. I know the crowd at the finish who are watching it on the big screen are beginning to hope and pray that they will fly the flag for France. They are just looking at the screen, and they are doing nothing. No clapping, no cheering, fingers crossed.
Good acceleration.
There's Pellisotti there, just sat down. Let's have a look at our climb facts of this last climb of the day, brought to us by AMD, the Col de l'Orme. A mere 4th category climb. I didn't think we'd talk about it in such high altitude, but there we are. 2.7 kilometers in length, up to 734 meters. Average gradients 3%, and it comes over the top at 9.5 kilometers from the finish. And that half a kilometre I've been talking about, 10 from the top, the half a kilometre might make all the difference today to David Moncoutier. Just look at that face. He's now on the climb of the Col de l'Orme. As the attack starts, it's Vicioso, the first to go. We'll take a short break, and then we'll come back and see all the action home. We are back. We're just over the top of the climb. You've missed nothing, because they're all together as they come over the top. There were attacks by Merckx and Vicioso, but they're still back as a group. They are now 31 seconds behind, and we're looking at the leader, David Moncoutier. He's gone over the top of the Col de l'Orme. He is now 9 kilometers from the finish. The peloton, we're looking at more than 10 minutes really before they get down to the line. Doesn't mean anything. It does mean that Sandy Cassar, 17 minutes down at the start, has pulled himself back 7 minutes on the leader, which will help him accelerate up the overall classification. But David Moncoutier trying to finish this for France today. Here he is. He's looked a little bit dicey at parts, but he seems to have recovered. And 31 seconds, the official gap at the top of the climb of the Col de l'Orme. For me, Paul, the big danger now, if he gets back, will be Angel Vicioso. I think he'll win this race. He is riding extremely well. He's never finished the Tour de France. He crashed out on stage 6, 2003. He abandoned on stage 10 last year, but he is a fast finisher.
Oh, he certainly is. We saw him win that pretty impressive stage in the Giro d'Italia, where he got disqualified for using all of the road. In fact, he used both sides, if my memory serves me correctly.
But he was wrongly disqualified that day, and the riders agreed with everybody. They said he should be given the stage.
It was reasonably undangerous, I suppose, but he has won a couple of stages this year of the Escutal Bicicleta, a race in the Basque Country, as Stuart O'Grady and his group come up to the summit of the climb too, and they are a fair distance behind. But O'Grady, I think, will be quite happy, even though he hasn't managed to win himself the stage here, because he knows that Team Cofidis have got a lot of publicity out of today, especially the 14th of July.
Well, the team's had a great day, and it's hopeful for the team. They might still have their greatest day if David Moncoutier can finish this off with his big win. Coming into town, these lovely camera shots which go right into the rider's face. They can't hide from anybody on the Tour de France. That's why this race is so different to all of the other races. You can't do anything without somebody writing about it or sending the picture in. Well, we're looking at the chase group here of 7, the remnants of the original 13. One is in front, the rest are behind. None will get caught by the bunch. They are almost at 10 minutes now, and they're just riding home. There will be sprints from the bunch, especially by Robin McEwen, who will want at least 14th place for a couple of points for that green jersey.
Well, he wants to do whatever he can to keep himself in with a chance, and what a long breakaway for Thor Hushoff and Stuart O'Grady to get themselves just a few points in that classification. 2 riders going clear on the descent. Vicioso marked there by Sandy Cassar, but Juan Manuel Garratti is coming straight back to the group.
Spinning up a little bit. Pellizzotti's let the door open. Algon is sitting here at the back. Just behind Axel Merckx, somebody's going to have to attack, because otherwise they'll be victims of the sprinters.
This is very good for David Moncoutier. If they keep accelerating, slowing down like this, the next time we get a time check to Moncoutier, it's going to be close to the 40-45 second mark. And if he's got that at 5 kilometers to go, I don't think they will ever see him.
I don't think they can catch him. Merckx is the one that wants to get there and win the stage, and they're just all not helping him. The gap is edging open. This man, I think, is nosing away to a fabulous victory for France today. It's been a while in coming. First one this year. Best day to choose. As we look here now, he can't pedal any more higher gear. He's in his top gear here, and he's pushing it as fast as he can pedal. David Moncoutier, 13 career wins, and he's about to move one notch higher and get rid of that little monkey off his shoulder, number 13.
I tell you what, it's still locked in at 30 seconds from Moncoutier to the group here, which contains Axel Merckx, Vicioso, Juan Manuel Garate. Merckx is absolutely frustrated there, just throwing his arm up, because he feels that not everybody in this group is putting their full effort into pulling back this lone leader.
Sandy Cassar, he's the man made the most gains today. 17 minutes down at the start. He might finish as much as 10 ahead today. 5 kilometers to go, 3 miles. It sounds better, 3 miles. It gets him a little bit closer to the flag. All he's going to do is keep looking down at those feet, checking where he is and driving on. Won't look over his shoulder now, because there's no effort can be saved now. It's win or lose everything.
It's absolutely everything for this man. He's got to put everything. One of the reasons he keeps putting his head down like that, by the way, is to make himself just that fraction more aerodynamic. You just caught a quick glimpse of Digne-les-Bains in the distance. 5 kilometers to go for the 7 chasers. There is a certain amount of disarray in this group now, Phil.
That, I think, is what's costing those valuable couple of seconds. And the closer we get, of course, the more messing about, because some of these guys will want a second place on the stage of the Tour de France, and they won't help. And that disorganises the chase. Garate there is freewheeling to the front because he can't pedal any faster just now.
That's a big advantage for Moncoutier, because that means they'll all go down this part of the course at the same speed. 4 kilometers to go now for David Moncoutier. The last time check, crackling over race radio, was in fact 28 seconds, so it's come down a little bit. But this man cannot flinch, Phil. He has to give everything he's got. In fact, instead of 100% here, he must be giving 110.
Well, just look at the speed of this boy now. He got away on the lower slopes, or the higher slopes of the Col de Colombat. I thought it was proving to be a bit too soon, but he had no other place on the course a man that rides like David Moncoutier could escape. He had to go there, he had to gamble, and it looks as though it might work. 28 seconds, they're nosing closer, but it's not fast enough.
There's 28 seconds at 5 kilometers to go. It's 28 seconds at 4 kilometers to go. They're not moving in fast enough. And this man, looking at his pedaling style here, is nicely locked onto his handlebars. The top half of his body is nice and solid. He's cutting around these corners as straight as he can, making it the shortest possible distance to the finish. It doesn't look to me as if he's losing any power at all in his pedaling style.
They're just nipping through the streets here now, through this game. 3 kilometers from the finish for David Moncoutier. It'll be a French-Mexican wave now, all the way to the line for him. There goes Vicioso again now, looking over, and just trying to mark him out there is Junti, I think it was. No, it wasn't. It would have been Arietta. He's marked in Merckx in second place now. This is Arietta nearest camera. They're that close. Look, we're at the same roundabout now. It is nothing, but they can't get any closer. I thought they would have had him when they came off the mountain on that wide road.
The tough thing is, in a race like this, on a day like this, where we've been in the average mountains, it's been up and down all of the time. It's still 28 seconds for this lone leader. But the problem is, everybody is in the same physical state. They're all pedaling to the maximum of their ability, and they're all tired, but this man is the one who took the risk.
How lonely is it out there now on a day of the Tour de France when you're French and it's July the 14th and you're racing in front of your own public, and he's rising to the occasion now at 2 kilometers almost. He'll see the banner very, very shortly. This is a huge effort, and of all of his victories, this will be his best ever, and he's had some good ones. There's the 2 kilometer banner, and the clock starts now for the chasers.
Well, it was 28 seconds to go. He's now basically looking at about 2.5 minutes of effort. I can't really believe that he's going to lose half a minute in the last 2.5 minutes of the race. He can add this victory to his victory last year in exactly the same style, a solo effort over the last few kilometers. That was on the road to Vyšehrad, and that was in his own home area, and it was similar to the weather conditions too, because it was a very hot day. The group behind now zigzagging over the road. This will really be playing into the advantage as they go under 2 kilometers to go, and it is still 28 seconds.
Well, there's Vicioso. He's laying off the back here. I don't know if he's going to try and do anything, but he's Algan is having none of it. He's following him back at the front. 1.5 kilometers to go. Once he sees the kite, he can celebrate. Nobody will cover it in 30 seconds faster time than this man. He will be on a tidal wave of noise. He's French. It is one of those great moments in any Tour de France.
Well, you can hear the crowd now. They are all behind this man. The Tour de France hasn't been here since 1969, and now it's coming back on Bastille Day, the French's greatest celebration. The next banner he will see, Phil, will be the kite, which indicates just 1 kilometer to go to the finish, picking his way precariously around that corner, and there is the kite.
There is the kite at 1 kilometer to go. Look at these people here. They all know, of course, who he is because they've been watching him on the big screen. And they went completely silent when they thought the group was coming back. They're not coming back now. Enjoy the moment.
That is the first time, Phil, over the last 10 kilometers I've seen him look back over his shoulder, and the reason for that was he just wanted confirmation. The race directors just told him he's got a 32-second advantage. He isn't going to enjoy this until the last 300 or 400 meters because he wants to make sure there's no silly comebacks. Well, David, I can tell you this, there won't be today.
32 kilometres or 20 miles. He has led today's stage of the Tour de France, and in the next 100 metres or so he will just start to celebrate. Time for this man is of no consequence. Today it's all about winning a stage in the Tour de France, and you choose the day the French love most, July the 14th. The only other day of the year they close the Champs-Élysées is for the arrival of the Tour de France, and he'll be there in Paris on the 24th as well. David Moncoutier from Vyšehrad last year to here in Digne-les-Bains this time around. That was a superb ride.
I don't think you can believe it, Phil. That is joy on his face. He really wanted this. It was a risk to go out with 32 kilometers to go to the finish, and that's what pays at the end of a day like this. These guys have lost out completely. Axel Merckx over there on the left-hand side, Vicioso at the back of this group. He will probably be the man to lead them home, although I can't see the dark box there tucked in.
They are all going to do almost come to a zero speed here as they start now to try and begin the sprint. Watch out for that rider in blue. They're afraid of him. He would have been the likely winner, I think. Garati sitting out the back. And there we go. That's the move. Arrieta, the non-sprinter, has opened it up, and quickly on his wheel is Vicioso. Sandy Cassar's got his wheel first. Cassar's made the big gains today. Probably more than 10 minutes for the overall. Cassar is going to try and make this a French 1-2 as he comes over on the right of our picture here. Vicioso has dived after his wheel now. Vicioso is going to wait, and he's going to come by and I think take it on the line. It was very, very close. It might have been Cassar second, Vicioso third. So a win for David Moncoutier today as the peloton is going to come home in about 10 minutes time.
Well, there's the winner of the stage, and what a great day for France, what a great day for Cofidis, and of course a fabulous day for David Moncoutier. This is the group of the sprinters, and I tell you what, we're going to have a violent sprint here as well, because Thor Hushovd wants to make sure that he crosses the line ahead of Stuart O'Grady. The man who might spoil the party there is number 24, Giovanni Lombardi. But just taking a quick look down the overall classification, with that ride here this afternoon, Phil, Sandy Cassar may well find himself moving right up into the top 15 at the end of the day.
That's what I figure, Paul, but of course he'll probably slip back again in the next couple of days when we go into the Pyrenees, and this is why he never concerned Lance Armstrong, because he started out 17 minutes behind him overall.
Look at Hushovd here, just sitting on the wheel of Stuart O'Grady. He knows he only wants to finish in front of one rider in this group, and it's the man who wears number 121 in front of him.
I have to say that these two are bitter rivals on rival teams. They used to be bitter rivals on the same team. And now the sprint starts on the left of the road. This is Shrek. And he's going to lead out Lombardi, who might spoil the party, but the other two just want to get one in front of the other, not particular where they finish. As Stefan Streck starts for the line, he's outdistanced Lombardi in the initial kick. It's a long finishing straight, so Streck has made a mistake there and he's got to sit up.
Whoops, he didn't realise how long it was to go to the finish. He should have understood, because that in fact was the kite indicating 1 kilometre to go. Now Lombardi is not in the position that he likes. He's looking under his back wheel there to see what the position is of Stuart O'Grady, but being a great track sprinter, I'm pretty sure he will start to pick up the pace around about now, with O'Grady in second, Hushoff in third.
Well, O'Grady is going to have to lead out the man in green, Tor Hushoff. Normally Hushoff these days is the quicker one, who is the most tired. As Gino Lombardi goes for the line, O'Grady now kicks and grits his teeth, moves over on the outside. Hushoff stuck right into his slipstream. This is going to be a matter of honour for Stuart O'Grady, but here comes Tor Hushoff. Hushoff on his wheel now. It's going to be touch and go, and Hushoff takes it. Hushoff gets the advantage over Stuart O'Grady. So just a 1 point difference, I think it is there for the green jersey, but it's a matter of honour that was lost.
That was a matter of honour, but it was a matter of honour for both of those two riders, Phil, to go out at that very long breakaway here this afternoon. And it's going to be a very long time before the main field actually comes down to the finishing line in Digne-les-Bains, because the last time check we got was around about 10 minutes in arrears. Not a bad day for Lance Armstrong. It's a day that he actually was a little bit worried about, because it was a tough day over some really undulating climbs. But fortunately for him, he hasn't had to have the team on the front for all that much time, because most of the work in the middle part of the course was done by Lotto de Vitamon.
Yes, it's been a good day all round. It would have been a perfect day, of course, if the little crash that involved by himself Manuel Beltran hadn't meant a knee injury and abandoning of the Tour de France. So it's certainly far from a perfect day for Lance.
Thomas Buchler at the back of the group. A lot of people tipped him to be the man to go out on the attack, but you know, the sad thing about the sport of professional cycling is lightning doesn't usually strike in the same place twice. There's a move coming off the front here for Team Cofidis, obviously on the crest of a wave right now because of the move there by their man David Moncoutier, getting himself the win here on Bastille Day.
Well, the Cofidis have had a great day out. Let's see if it can continue. I wonder if he already knows the result. He probably does. The management must have probably told the team we've won, and that gives everybody a little bit of inspiration. The Spanish flag flying there. Just can't quite see in the sun exactly who this rider is, but I think it is Thierry Maréchal, one of the old-timers on the team. It is.
One of the Belgians on the team jumping off the front end of the group. There's still money at stake on a day like this, and there's still a bit of pride at stake as well, as the front end of the main field is fairly organised. It looks like Team CSC have got themselves a rider starting to pull themselves down towards the line as they now go under the banner indicating 5 kilometres to go. So Phil, it's going to take these guys around about 7 minutes before they get here. So that, in fact, is going to be pretty close to 12 minutes for that leading group. And that will be good news for a man by the name of Sandy Cassar, because with 12 minutes, he could move himself just outside the top 10.
So as the riders continue, keep checking that finishing clock. It's not going to make any difference to the destiny of the jersey, but it gives you some idea as to the gap. David Moncoutier is now sitting down behind the finish tribune, smiles and talking to the press and enjoying the moment of being the winner. Well, don't forget, as the peloton gets in, and when they do, and our programme finishes here on the Tour de France, following next will be E-Force, and enjoy that as well. That's up next here on OLN, straight after our coverage of the Tour de France, E-Force. The peloton below are now stalking the finishing line. It'll be another sprint, and Robbie McEwen is now hoping he wins it. 6.25 minutes now since David Moncoutier finished, as the peloton 4 kilometres out still.
Well, I estimate it's going to be pretty close to 11 or 12 minutes once they cross the line. There's Garcia Acosta on the far side. Now, he spoiled the party for the French a couple of years ago on Bastille Day, because he won on the road into Draguignan ahead of Laurent Jalabert's brother Nicolas, who unfortunately didn't have a great day here at the Tour de France. So that is Fabien Cancellara just at the back end of the group. Just in front of him is one of the riders from FDJ, that is Francis Mouret. Had a good day in the mountains yesterday, and Robbie McEwen has obviously asked the guys to go right up to the front end of the main field to keep the pace nice and high. They don't want any more of these little attacks, because it's important for McEwen to make sure he gets sprints now and points on every one of these days. Thor Hushovd will be the new leader of the green jersey points classification because Tom Boonen, the overnight leader, wasn't able to start this morning. He had the sad news of 3 crashes in 5 days, and he wasn't able to get up this morning. His knee actually swelled up quite dramatically last night when he got back to the team hotel, and he was advised by the doctor that it would probably be more difficult for him to continue in the race and might cause some long-term damage.
Which, of course, the riders don't want when they're in the Tour de France and their upcoming races. The season not over. Still to come, the Tour of Spain, the Summer Classics and the World Titles.
And I think that may well be one thing that helps Tom Boonen to make that decision, because this year the World Championships is in Madrid, and everybody says it's the kind of course that would suit a sprinter, and that's one of the main reasons why the big sprinter Alessandro Petacchi did not come to the Tour de France this year. He wants to ride the Tour of Spain and then get himself right into gear to try and win the World Championships as well.
8 minutes now having passed by. The peloton is being timed at 10:50, but they might lose a little bit more time on the run-in. There is Dean Lebain, and they've got themselves a French winner, first time in this year's Tour de France. And what a day to choose.
What a day to choose. The Bastille Day, probably the most important day for any Frenchman to win, adding his name now to that of Richard Virenque, who was the winner last year on exactly the same day, but a few hundred kilometers away from here in the town of Saint-Flour.
And in the green jersey competition, a new leader tonight. The first time ever a Norwegian rider has pulled on a green jersey, and that'll be Thor Hushovd, who slightly increased his lead with his finishing sprint over Stuart O'Grady, with Robbie McEwen in 3rd place. But by how many points? That's what we're asking ourselves. He's got to try and win the sprint from the group today, and that's why his team have now started to interject riders in the front. But watch out, here comes another attack from Cofidis. You can't stop them today, can you?
You can't stop them today, and they're trying to get themselves a few extra marking points at the end of the day. McEwen is not too far away there. I just caught sight of the Aussie National Champions jersey in 6th place. There he is, popping through with the yellow helmet.
But the yellow sleeves on his jersey too. It's pretty easy to pick out when you can find Robbie in the peloton. 9 minutes has gone by. They're not far away now through the S's here. Sharp right off the roundabout. A little bit tricky, this approach, until they get to the last kilometre. It's okay when you're on your own, like Moncoutier was, but now it can be a little bit difficult. But there's a long line here. There's not so many riders want to win now, of course, because the main prizes have gone for the day, but it's very important for McEwen.
It's very important for McEwen. Baden Cook is moving up there on the right-hand side. McEwen is up into 5th place. He really wants this. He really wants to make sure that he crosses the line here in 14th place. Doesn't sound very important, does it? But at the end of the race, after 3 weeks, the points that he gets here may well just be the points that have given him the green jersey for the 3rd time in his career.
De Vita and Lotto got the control of the peloton, but have they got the control of the sprinters who are waiting to go now? McEwen just off to our right with the yellow helmet on, 4th wheel. He's looking for the move. You better watch it. It's coming on the other side of the road. McEwen is going to have to stretch his legs here. He's going to have to go on the narrow road, I think, as the sprint starts for the line now. He's trying to be given the lead out. He's leaving it a little bit late, or is he? He's in 4th wheel here, and he's being tried, and now he comes on the left. There's nobody in this race can beat McEwen. That was nearly a nasty switch, but there we are. McEwen takes, I think Foster got 2nd.
And the man who led him out there was fast Freddie Rodriguez, who gave him a big turn on the front for around about 200 meters. The former American national champion. He doesn't wear the stars and stripes anymore. He lost that title in June in the town of Philadelphia, the city of Philadelphia. But Robbie McEwen will say a big thank you, I think, once again there to the man from the United States.
The beauty now, Provence, has witnessed a great finish for Moncoutier today. Let's have a look then at the stage results today, brought to us by Pacific Life. David Moncoutier has broken the French duck today with a victory on Bastille Day. Sandy Cassar made it a 1-2 to remind us that there's more than one Frenchman in the race. Angel Vicioso, he got 3rd. Patrice Algon, another Frenchman, gets 4th. And there was only 3 of them in the breakaway. Oese Luis Ariata completes the top 5. Further down, it is Thor Hushovd getting the better of the Australian Stuart O'Grady in the battle for the green jersey. Hushovd will be the next wearer of the green jersey, the first ever from Norway. We'll be back to see that award, and of course we'll be talking to Lance Armstrong. Another day he can tick off. See you in a moment. Looking down on Digne-les-Bains, we have not been here with the Tour de France since 1969. That was the day the great Eddie Merckx finished first here ahead of Felice Gimondi of Italy. But today, the date was July the 14th, still is for that matter, and today they have a French winner in David Moncoutier. Well, it's been a great day for the French, a very sad day for Lance Armstrong, of course, because although he's kept all of his advantage, he's lost a teammate.
That's bad news, because Lance, I think, over the last couple of years has been very proud since 2002 to take all 9 riders up to Paris, and to lose a man like that, there won't be very much joviality at the dinner table this evening.
No, but it was in other respects a day off for him because of that breakaway getting clear. Sandy Cassar, yes, he was 17 minutes behind overall, best placed in the breakaway, and he's got about 10 minutes back. But of course, when we go into the Pyrenees, he'll probably lose that time again. Although in his early days, Cassar was fated as a top boy, wasn't he?
He certainly was. A couple of years ago, he finished 2nd overall in Paris-Nice, and the best young rider, and the French always believed that this man could be a high finisher in the Tour de France. He's got himself a big bonus today by getting into that breakaway, but I agree with you. I think when we get up into the Pyrenees at the weekend, there's going to be another change in the face of the Tour de France, because Saturday and Sunday are 2 very difficult days. But today, Phil, the race has to belong to France. It is Bastille Day, and it belongs to David Moncoutier.
There were 3 Frenchmen in the breakaway. They finished in the top 4 placings on the stage. That's pretty good, to say the least. They were very determined. This was win everything or lose everything, an attack well out on the course, 32 kilometres from the finish by David Moncoutier. The only place this man would get away would be at the steepest part of the climb of the Colobin, because after that he'd be looked at too closely, and he got away there. He got his half a minute. It came back. They could almost touch him on the bottom road, but he stuck to his guns and suffered that little bit more. And beneath these brilliant blue skies, it was a brilliant day out for him. Once over the top, he was up and running.
It's almost exactly the same way as he won his stage in the Tour de France last year on the road to Figeac. But there, yesterday, last year, he was motivated by the fact that that was on his home training roads. But the Pacific Life results here brought to us can show us that David Moncoutier got the win at the end of the day by 57 seconds ahead of Sandy Cassar, another Frenchman, and Angel Vicioso, who was hoping today that he might have got the win. And in fact, the French had a great day on Bastille Day, because Pratus Algon was in 4th.
At top 4 places for the 3 Frenchmen in the breakaway. Looking further down, Pelosotti got 6, Axel Merckx in the end got 7. He won't be happy with that. Hushoft, interestingly enough, got the better of Stuart O'Grady, and that's a battle which could go all the way to Paris there, because that little gain of a single point. They used to be teammates, now they're not such good friends, you know. But we're going to go to the podium now. We can hear the music beginning out there, and then, as usual, the first man up will be the man for France who's won the day. It's very silent down there at the moment. Everybody just waiting to see who turns out behind the curtain. And I can tell you, when Moncoutier comes out, Digne-les-Bains, if it had a roof on it, it's about to lose it. It is an amazing day here for the French, because this town has, I don't know what his population is, but it's at least 10 times what his population is right now. There's the podium. Here we are. Wait for it. David Moncoutier for France on the podium on Bastille Day.
Well, that's what he wanted. It's a great win and a great way to get it, Phil. A 32-kilometre breakaway. He had to wait for a long time to know whether or not he was going to win, because once he locked that advantage in at 30 seconds, it only really faltered 1 second or another to his detriment.
Well, a lovely smile from David. We were racing very close to his home area in Figeac when he won the stage last year, but I bet he trades this win for that one, as he gets the first French stage victory of this year's Tour de France. It's 20 years, you know, since a Frenchman has won the Tour de France overall, and that Frenchman is on the podium. He's about to shake hands with Bernard Hinault when he steps down, and I would think that Bernard will have a special word of encouragement for him today. He usually just shakes the guy's hands and passes them on. I don't think that'll happen today. We'll see, yeah?
No, well, the Blair, I think, will be pretty happy about that, because he's still a very proud Frenchman, and he's probably just a little bit sad, Phil, by the fact that it's been 20 years since a Frenchman won the Tour de France, and he's right on hand there to help out. There he goes. He's a tough character, you know, there in the blue shirt. He won the Tour de France on 5 occasions. The former teammate of Greg LeMond, but the Michelin GC hasn't changed much, has it?
No, it hasn't changed at all, even though they finished so far behind. They had their own little private rest day today, I think. Lance Armstrong now in the saddle for 46.5 hours. Rasmussen only 38 seconds back. Still causes a lot of concern to Lance. Lance won't allow him up the road anymore now. He'll keep a very close eye on him. Christophe Moreau is holding third. No change at all in any of these positions. All of these riders finishing alongside one another in the bunch today. Andries Kloden holds top 10 just at 4:16 behind Jan Ulrich. Floyd Landis still rides this race well, looking for the forward, I would think, to the Pyrenees. He's in 11th. Vinokurov, the great winner yesterday, in 12th. Cadel Evans, the up-and-coming young Australian, in 14th. And Popovic completes the top 15. And he, of course, is an Armstrong teammate. Lance is now preparing to get another yellow jersey in the Tour de France. Before he comes out, we will take our break. Come back and join us, and don't forget, we're still going to speak to him as well. See you all in a moment here in Digne-les-Bains. Don't go far away. Lots to come. Welcome back, and we're looking at the beautiful scenery that abounds here above this little high provincial town of Digne-les-Bains. And down below us now, the presentations are just getting underway. We've seen David Moncoute up on stand. Now we can join here. And there we have Thor Hushovd. And he's there to become the first ever Norwegian cyclist to wear the green jersey as points leader of the Tour de France. And there are a mass of spectators here from Norway.
I'm not sure if you can just hear in the background, the spectators are shouting, Hushovd. It's almost like being in a soccer stadium.
Well, I must say, with his green shorts, which are his official team strip, he looks pretty good in green right now, and he's going to be a tough man to dislodge. He's a few points ahead of Stuart O'Grady and Robbie McEwen. McEwen was the holder of this winner of this competition last year, and he's not out of it yet. This will go all the way to Paris, this one.
It certainly will. There are two serious challengers, Stuart O'Grady and Robbie McEwen, and as it has been for the last few years, Phil, it will be, I'm sure, a battle up to the Champs-Élysées.
It's a wonderful competition these last few years, the race for points. It's for the most consistent daily finisher, the men that can get up there in the first 20 or so riders on every stage brings that jersey. As we saw today, Robbie McEwen put in a big effort there to get just a place in the pack. Next up should be the King of the Mountains. There it is, and there he is again. Scandinavia having rather a good time now, because this is Denmark's Michael Rasmussen.
See who's presenting the jersey, though. Richard Viron, the holder of the record for 7 titles of King of the Mountains, and he's celebrating there with Michael Rasmussen, who, let's not forget, is also in 2nd place in the overall classification.
A matching uniform for the girls. Michael Rasmussen and Richard Viron, 7 times a winner of that World Tour de France record. Lance looks for 7 yellow jerseys. Viron saluting, and I bet he didn't expect to salute a Danish cyclist in his jersey, in quotes.
Well, the only person not surprised about that lead is obviously Rolf Sørensen, who told us a couple of days before this man got the lead in the polka dot jersey that he was actually going to go out and go for it.
Absolutely. Well, there we are, and we're looking out across the city again now. I think they're rapidly bringing out probably the white jersey next, as we await to see just who is coming out on the podium. But there's going to be a good battle there, and yes, there it is. He's out now, and this is the white jersey, best rookie of the Tour so far.
Alejandro Valverde is a name I'm sure we'll talk a lot about in the future, because this man, Armstrong said the other day, was very, very rapid in the sprint. He's a leader of the white jersey competition, but you know, he's pretty high up in the overall classification as well, because he's 5th overall.
This is for the riders who are not older than 25 on the 1st of January 1980, so it's really an under-set 26 award. He gets the white jersey, and he'd be a tough boy to lose that, to take it off him, because he'll be a challenger, I think, when we get into the mountains of the Pyrenees, because he's nearly home, and there'll be an awful lot of support for him there.
He'll be the top man when they get down into the Pyrenees, and I wouldn't be surprised, Phil, if he doesn't actually get himself another stage victory before the end.
All right, well, we're waiting, of course, for the one to come on. While he is, let me remind you what's following straight after our live coverage here of the Tour de France. It is E-Force here on OLN, and the crew are back in action as they work hard to cover a lost plane in the Florida Keys. And that could be a snappy problem down there, I would think. And that's E-Force next on OLN. So the cheers are down there. He's got to be there, and there he is, Lance Armstrong. Now I'm losing count, but I make this yellow jersey number 74 since 1999.
Well, he's only 4 days in the yellow jersey away from the second position in the all-time record holders, and that is the position currently held by that man in the blue shirt there, Bernard Hinault. But Armstrong today didn't really have to worry too much. I think the race today very much played into his hands.
Yes, he's lost a ride today, and that will be the subject of conversation, I am sure, tonight, but he is still very solid in that race lead. Only Rasmussen is a real threat just now at 38 seconds, and Lance won't let that man out of his sight anymore, not like he did towards the end of last week.
But it is going to be very sad, I agree with you, Phil, at the dinner table, because cast your mind back just 24 hours. Who was the man who led for an awful long time on the slopes of the Col du Galibier? It was a man called Tricky Beltran, and today he found himself at the side of the road, and what a sad day that will be for them.
Quick look at the Michelin results, reminding ourselves there's no change on the classification. It's the same as this morning. Everybody coming home together that mattered. Armstrong holds at 38 seconds over Rasmussen, 2:34 over Christophe Moreau, 2:40 over Ivan Basso. Watch out for Moreau, Basso, Valverde and Rasmussen. They're all climbers. Could be a great battle in the Pyrenees later this week, you know. Leipheimer is on great form and could well move up from 7th. While Mancebo, Ulrich Kloden, this is going to be one great end to the Tour de France this year. They will stay in the thick of the action. You can hear all the shouting outside. It is the spectators, they're all from the USA, shouting 777 for Lance Armstrong. This is going to be an amazing end to the Tour. Floyd Landis is far from out of this either, although he lost a teammate today as well. Robbie Hunter, the sprinter on Phonak, also dropping out of the competition. Well, let's have a look at Lance Armstrong's day here on the Discovery Channel team. Sat in the main peloton for most of it, and riders in front, always looking after him.
Well, the team today, basically, they looked at the composition of that leading group of 13 riders, and they said to themselves, there's nobody there really dangerous at all in the overall classification, so let's have a day off and leave it up to the men in the front.
So Armstrong came in happy as a sandboy today. When we get back, we'll have him off the podium, and we promise you we will have an interview with Lance Armstrong, and we'll probably talk about Manuel Beltran as well. Come back after this. There we are, still at Dean Band. We're waiting for the big interview with Lance Armstrong. He's behind the podium. We'll be going to him any second now, but I'll tell you what, this has been a good day of racing. In fact, Lance Armstrong, we've just checked his position, crossed the line today in 41st place, finishing 10 minutes and 33 seconds behind the winner. And do you think he cared?
He didn't care at all. All he worried about were the men who were in the top 20 places in the overall classification, and they were all alongside him.
So it was a good day for Lance, except, of course, for the fact that he's lost a rider with Manuel Beltran crashing very early on by himself, hitting his knee, got back on his bike. He tried to catch up, called the doctor. The doctor says, I think you better drop out the race. And that's a big decision when you're on the Discovery team, because, you know, we're going back to what? Christian van der Velde when he crashed.
2001, after he crashed in the team time trial on a very rainy day that cost him the victory on that occasion. But I think Armstrong has been very proud about the fact that he's kept the team together. He kept them together in the team time trial, and he likes to take all 9 men all the way to the finish.
Thanks, Paul. Well, I can hear now that we have finally got Lance Armstrong. He's with Craig Hummer.
Lance, the last time you arrived in Paris with less than 9 riders was 2001. Looking ahead to the Pyrenees, how critical could the loss of Tricky Beltran be?
It could be very critical, because he's with the days that we have coming up, the 2 tough days in the Pyrenees, and actually we could say 3 tough days in the Pyrenees. We don't want to lose any climbers, and Tricky's one of our pure climbers. Having said that, what's happened has happened, and you know, we have to look to Jose and to Chechu and to even George and Popo and Paulo Sabadelli to pick up the slack, and I feel very confident that with those 7 guys we can manage.
You just finished your last Alpine stage as a professional cyclist. How nostalgic can you allow yourself to be, either before or after these sort of days?
It didn't even occur to me. I have to be honest. It didn't occur to me at all.
All right. Well, see you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Well, you see, Lance assesses everything on the route. He would have known, of course, out on the route what had happened. He'd been informed by Johan Brunel on his earpiece radio. the other boys will all have to take the extra weight on the shoulders and ride that little bit better to make up for the lost man in the mountains.
They will do. I'm sure they'll rise to the occasion. They know that as every day goes by, they're taking Armstrong just that little bit closer through these mountains on the way up to Paris and the Champs-Élysées. But there's going to be a very tough weekend in store for everybody, Phil, because there are two very tough Pyrenean stages, especially the one on Sunday, which finishes at the top of the monster climb down there, the Pla d'Adet.
All right, well, one last look at Dean Liban there. I think we can now go and join Bob Troutwig and how about Bob Roll and Al Troutwig? My voice is back, boys.
All right, Phil, no one got the right pick today, but maybe that's no surprise in a stage like this. Good to hear Phil sounding better. Let's talk a little bit about how heavy a hit this is for Discovery. I mean, to hear Lance talk about it, he used the word extremely important.
Yeah, it's a critical situation when you have riders that are willing and able and capable of attacking Lance Armstrong. Not tomorrow, but the 2 stages after that. Tricky Beltran, year in and year out, for the last few tours, has been one guy that Lance can count on to set the tempo in the early climbs of the day, and we have crazy climbs throughout each stage in the Pyrenees, so he's going to be sorely missed. They have great athletes to take up the slack that Lance mentioned, but losing Tricky Beltran here is a bit handicapped the team, so we'll have to see how that plays out.
It's a perfect day to get the opinion of the man who runs the Discovery team. That would be Johan Brunel, who's the director sportif or general manager. He spoke to Craig Hummer.
Johan, if you could describe exactly what happened with the Tricky crash and how is he?
Well, exactly what happened, I don't know, because I was with him right after the crash. He was sitting on the ground. He looked really like he didn't know what happened, and we put him back on the bike. All he told me that a guy in front of him did a wrong movement. He hit the wheel and he crashed, but he hit his head pretty hard. And we put him back on the bike, tried to get him going again, and he went on for like 10-15 kilometers. But we could see that he didn't know where he was. There was no power at all, and after a while he didn't even realize he had crashed. So we saw that something was wrong. The race doctor told us it was better that he would stop. So we forced him to stop, got in the ambulance, and he went to the hospital in Gap. They took a scan, and the first reports are pretty good. There's nothing really, at first sight, there's nothing wrong. But they have decided to keep him overnight there for 24 hours. And now the team doctor is going to go tonight to see him and talk with the doctors who have examined him and will know more. But it's tough to lose a rider, but the good news is that he doesn't have anything serious. And I think that's the most important.
Certainly his health is the most important thing. I just asked Lance the same question. Who do you look towards in the team to pick up the slack, and how does this affect the team as you head into the next mountain stages in the Pyrenees?
Well, there's nobody really who can pick up what he was doing, because we need all the guys and everybody knows his role, and he and Chechu were working in the early mountains, so it's going to be tougher on the team, of course, because it's one guy less, and his job they'll have to share it with a few guys. So it's harder, but that's the race, and it can always happen. And as I say, the most important thing is that he's safe and he's okay. And I think the other guys will be strong enough to pick up what he was doing.
All right, we'll give him our best, obviously, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
All right, to me, the Tour de France is the toughest sporting event in the world. And when you lose one of your key players, obviously that's a loss. So the pressure gets ramped up on somebody. And I'm reminded that this is the kind of bad turn that could happen to Lance Armstrong at any moment. It's the kind of thing that makes 6 straight ridiculous.
That's a good reminder of the 6 straight. That can happen. Tricky Beltran in line with his teammates. One rider randomly makes a switch in front of him that he couldn't predict, shouldn't have done it. He goes down, pow, knocks the head, and he's out of the Tour just like that in the first few kilometers when there's no strategic situation going on at all. Beltran right out of the race. So it is a very powerful reminder of how the fortunes can be turned immediately in a race that's out in the open country on the roads of the world like cycling is.
Now, tomorrow, Stage 13 is a relatively flat affair. Then the end of Stage 14, we begin to visit the Pyrenees and those vicious climbs. Here's Paul Sherwen with a special look at the mountain climbs that are still to come in this year's Tour de France.
After almost 1,600 miles and 5 brutal mountain stages, the 2005 Tour de France reveals its most difficult challenge. Stage 15, from Les As-sur-Lez to the legendary Pla d'Adet, physically brutal and for some emotionally devastating. 205 kilometers, 127 miles, and almost all of it uphill. Some of the famous climbs along the route include the Col de Porte d'Aspet, the Col de Peyresourde, and the final Pla d'Adet. The profile reveals no fewer than 6 high mountain passes on the day. Perhaps none will generate more emotion from the peloton than the very first climb of the day, the Col de Porte d'Aspet, where 10 years ago Fabio Casatelli lost his life. For friends and former teammates of Casatelli, this will be a day filled with remembrance. And in the same way that Lance Armstrong went on to win a stage for Fabio back in 1995, the safe money will be on him again this year. Armstrong has a proven pedigree over these climbs, being the last winner at Pla d'Adet back in 2001. Fueled by the inspiration of a fallen teammate, stage 15 may be the day that Armstrong puts his stamp on his final Tour de France. It'll be a classic mountain stage leading into the Tour's second rest day. This is the signal that the riders are nearing the turn towards Paris, but it's a long road home, as stage 16 offers no rest for the weary. Mourenne to Pau, 110 miles, the daunting climbs of the Col de Marie Blanc and the Col d'Aubisque. It's another long and hot stage with vicious climbs, followed by a fast downhill run to the finish. If the race for the overall title is close, then it'll be perfect setup for the final time trials looming 4 days later. The Pyrenees may well decide the overall winner of the 2005 Tour de France, so pay special notice to the man in yellow at the end of stage 16.
And the Pyrenees all begin at the end of stage 14. Tomorrow, a relatively flat affair. The sprinting battle for the green jersey has been absolutely vicious, so that will be on display tomorrow. Live coverage beginning at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time and 5:30 a.m. Pacific Time. Expanded coverage in prime time, 8 in the East, 9 in the Pacific Time Zone every night at the home for the Tour, OLN. Some of the images for the day, our OLN team outfitted by LL Bean. Visit them at llbean.com. And for more of OLN programming notes and to find out more about the tour, go to olntv.com. Up next on OLN, E-Force. For our entire crew and in the booth with Bob Roll, Al Trowick saying thanks for joining us for Stage 11 of the 2005 Tour de France. Stage 12. It's catching up to me, Bob. We'll get it right tomorrow when it goes to Stage 13. David Moncoutier, a Frenchman winning on Bastille Day. That's the way dreams are written in this sport. See you tomorrow here on OLN.